If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. Today we're taking a look at the mysterious Nicola Bulley case. From across the pond over in the UK, this case has been requested on MINDSHOCK quite a bit in the past month or so as it was unfolding. I usually like to wait a little bit when there's more details to logically examine, so it's not 100% hypothesizing. So supposedly she's been found and identified via dental records. And the media hoopla, so to speak, was kind of out of control on this one. Some people say a bit unusual. But is that due to all of the anomalies in the case? And of course, this is MINDSHOCK, where we will look at all of them and consider all theories without falling for any silly logical fallacies, like the mainstream media is known for, or other podcasts. As always, if you find the MINDSHOCK podcast interesting and informative and want to help support logic and reason in the realm of true crime and other subjects, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. If they're still not coming up or you find yourself unsubscribed, just make sure you like and comment on more videos so the YouTube algorithm will not remove you and will hopefully update you. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. So let's jump right in here. Let's go through the official narrative right on the wiki. Death of Nicola Bulley, January 27, 2023. British woman Nicola Bulley disappeared whilst walking her dog in St. Michael's-on-Wyre in Lancashire, England. Lancashire Constabulary said there was no evidence of either suspicious activity or third-party involvement in the disappearance and quickly stated that their working hypothesis was that she had fallen into the River Wyre. However, an extensive search of the river and surrounding land, including police, divers, helicopters, sniffer dogs, and drones, found no body. On February 19th, her body was found in the river by a man and a woman walking their dog about a mile from where she was last seen. The following day, Lancashire Constabulary confirmed that the body was Bulley's. The cause of death has not yet been established. The police were criticized for their handling of the case, including releasing private details of Bulley's health. Members of the public, particularly users of social media, were also criticized for traveling to the area during the search and for what police described as playing private detectives. Background: Nicola Jane Bulley, aged 45, was born in Essex and moved to Lancashire in the late 90s. She had 2 daughters with her 44-year-old partner, and the family lived in the village of Inskip. Bulley was a mortgage advisor. Bulley suffered from issues relating to alcohol and perimenopause, and police and health professionals attended the family home on January 10th to respond to a concern for welfare. Now, I really don't want to get into the realm of police conspiracies right now without actually having outlined everything, but just a point here, we do have that police were familiar with who she was, at least on January 10th during this welfare check, or whatever you want to call it. Disappearance Friday, 27th January 2023. Bulley drove from her home to the nearby village of St. Michael's-on-Wyre, where after dropping her children off at school at approximately 8:40 a.m., she walked along the River Wyre with her Springer Spaniel dog. At 8:53, Bulley sent an email to her employer. At 8:57, she sent a text to a friend to arrange a play date for their children that week. She then joined a Microsoft Teams call at 9:01, keeping her camera and microphone disengaged. She was last seen at approximately 9:10 on a riverside field walking with her dog off its lead. At 9:20, Bulley's phone was believed to be in the vicinity of a riverside bench. At 9:30, the Teams call was ended by its host. At 9:33, passerby discovered Bulley's mobile phone, which was still connected to the Teams call, on the bench. Bulley's dog was found alone near the bench and showed no signs of having been in the river. The dog's harness was found on the ground between the bench and the river. So right off the bat, my first thought not necessarily with this particular dog, but at least the breed of this dog. What would this dog do if its owner, and how long had she owned the dog? I don't see the detail right here. Maybe we'll get into that if somebody knows. Would the dog follow its owner into the river, especially if the owner was attempting to commit suicide? Would the dog try to save the owner? By all accounts, one would think logically, I mean, this is what dogs usually do, whether they can or can't. There's some kind of an attempt or something where the dog would actually get close to the owner to kind of ascertain what's going on. That's technically the dog's job to protect. Again, I'm not an expert on different breeds and how they all behave differently, or this specific dog. Obviously, dogs are unique just like people. But that's my first thought there. Just I would like to know about the expected behavior of the dog. Investigation police. After the report of Bulley's disappearance, Lancashire Constabulary immediately graded Bulley as high risk because of specific vulnerabilities due to her significant issues with alcohol, which were brought on by her ongoing struggles with the menopause. The classification increased the priority and resources assigned to the investigation. The search for Bulley was initially focused on tracing a potential witness, a woman in a red coat spotted on CCTV walking a dog near the site of Bulley's disappearance. She was later identified as a 68-year-old woman who confirmed she had not seen Bulley. Or she said she didn't. On February 4th, police released a CCTV image of another woman who was seen pushing a pram in the area at the time of Bulley's disappearance. The police later reported that the woman had come forward very quickly. A pram is basically like a child stroller for those uninitiated into the UK lingo. Searches of the river and riverbank from St. Michael's on Wye to the sea found nothing of interest. On February 3rd, Lancashire Constabulary stated that they had believed the circumstances of Bulley's disappearance were not suspicious nor criminal and did not involve a third party. Also, how convenient is it if none of the CCTV footage in the area it doesn't show anything. It doesn't show her anywhere. Does it show her going into the area and not coming out? I mean, how convenient is that? I mean, again, if this is a small village, whatever, but there's clearly some CCTV somewhere. And it's coincidental, possibly. I don't know. Police speculation that Bulley had fallen into the river wire were met with criticism and skepticism by Bulley's family and friends. They stated that the hypothesis was unsupported by evidence, whilst Bulley's partner said that he was convinced she was not in the river. A Lancashire Constabulary superintendent reiterated that this remained the force's working hypothesis, and they were, quote, as sure as they can be that Bulley had not left the area. I mean, is that based on CCTV? She was seen going in, and there's enough CCTV in some kind of square mile radius. I mean, I don't know how they determined that. But if so, I guess that's how. The search involved police, divers, a helicopter, sniffer dogs, and drones, and was assisted by the Coast Guard, mountain rescue, and fire crews. Members of the public helped with the search, and police requested the community to look out for the clothing Bulley was known to be wearing. She had worn her Fitbit, although its last data synchronization was before her disappearance, and its account was not useful to the investigation. On February 9th, the search moved to Morecambe Bay, the mouth of the River Wire. At a press conference held on February 15th by Assistant Chief Constable Peter Lawson and Detective Superintendent Rebecca Smith, Lancashire Constabulary stated that there remained no evidence of criminal activity or of third-party involvement in Bulley's disappearance. Smith was critical of users of social media such as TikTok who had visited the area playing private detectives. She stated that false information, speculation, and rumor had been detrimental to the police investigation and had adversely affected Bulley's family. Later that same day, the police clarified comments in the conference referring to Bulley's specific vulnerabilities by specifying that they related to alcohol and menopause, and stated that the police had attended a concern for welfare report at her home January 10th. Police also put in place a dispersal order after social media video makers caused a nuisance and disrupted the investigation. Just looking at all these photos of the river, I mean, it's not like this is a giant raging river. I mean, it should be very simple to search. I mean, wow. Especially if you're using high-tech equipment and you have all these people. This is truly a baffling one. Private search team. Peter Falding led an independent search effort by his company Specialist Group International that used side-scan sonar. He described Bulley's disappearance as strange and that in his 20-year career, he had never seen something so unusual. After an extensive search of the River Wire, the underwater team concluded their operation. Falding said that his team were unable to locate her in the area of the River Wire where detectives thought she may have entered the water, stating, quote, "That area is completely negative. There is no sign of Nicola in that area. The main focus will be the police investigation down the river, which leads out to the estuary," end quote. Falding believed it was unlikely that Bulley had been swept out to sea, adding, quote, "My personal view is that I think it is a long way to go in a tidal river," end quote. Recovery of the body. On February 19th, the body was found in the river by a man and a woman out walking their dog, about 1 mile downstream of where Bulley was last seen. The couple informed the police, and the body, which was among reeds and undergrowth, was subsequently recovered. Police set up a tent beside the river, and a police helicopter operated above the area. Some members of the public tried to take photos of the body by climbing over a fence and pretending to be journalists. Wow, that's dumb. On February 20th, Lancashire Constabulary confirmed that the body was Bulley's. She was identified from dental records. The cause of death has not yet been established. An inquest opened on February 22nd at Preston Coroner's Court before Senior Coroner James Adderley, and once identification was confirmed, adjourned until a date probably in June 2023. That's kind of far out. Criticism of the media and of the Lancashire police. After confirming Bulley's death at a press conference, Lancashire police read a statement from Bulley's family in which they condemned the actions of Sky News and ITV News for making contact directly with them when they had expressed requested privacy, describing the conduct of media outlets as shameful. The family also criticized people who accused Bulley's partner of involvement in her disappearance. Baroness Wheatcroft, former editor of the Sunday Telegraph, said the media had invaded the family's privacy, calling it a feeding frenzy. On February 21st, the broadcasting regulator, Ofcom, said it was extremely concerned to hear complaints about media conduct made by Bulley's family and that it had written to both ITV and Sky News to ask them to explain their actions. The police's revelation of Bulley's health details was criticized by many. Homeland Secretary Suella Braverman asked the force to justify its decision. Vera Baird commented if publicizing the details would have aided the search, it would have been done immediately, and otherwise she thought it sexist. Prime Minister Rishi, so she's stating that if it was an alcoholic man, they would not have revealed that he was an alcoholic? Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, or some kind of alcohol related, not necessarily an alcoholic. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Leader of the Opposition Keir Starmer both expressed concerns. Other critics included Leader of the House of Commons Penny Mordaunt and MPs Stella Creasy and Alicia Kearns. The Information Commissioner's Office had also contacted the force with regard to the release of personal information. Lancashire Constabulary's media strategy as a whole has been criticized as having encouraged rumor and speculation. Guardian columnist Zoe Williams called police discussion of Bulley's health the worst judgment call on the police's part. There was no call for that level of detail. It appeared to be introduced purely to discredit her as a rational actor. On the other hand, too, whether she's a rational actor or not, again, is there a magic Dungeons & Dragons protection spell that protects anybody who has alcohol issues or is going through menopause from any kind of predators in the world? I mean, it's just kind of weird. Williams extended her criticism to the general public via social media, which enacted entirely contrarily to, in her own opinion, to how reason and tact would dictate in the early stages of the case when police released minimal information. Everything the police left unsaid opened a vacuum in which the armchair detectives and keyboard warriors piled with conspiracies, speculation, and fantasy. The glee and shamelessness of people broadcasting their vigilante investigations was chilling. Extended to one YouTube broadcaster himself joining the search, getting arrested on a public order charge for doing so, and then broadcasting himself again getting fined. When the theories circulating forced the police to hold the February 15th news conference to debunk them, she noted 2 Daily Mail columnists tweeted links to columns criticizing Detective Superintendent Smith for having worn a sleeveless dress. It's a crowded field, but this may have been a low point for traditional media, she wrote. Wait, what? Okay. Well, the weird thing about so-called debunking theories, if the case isn't solved, I mean, what are you debunking? I mean, it's just a weird thing. The cult of authority worship, of course, it thinks that debunkings are valid in unsolved cases or not legitimately solved cases. But because, of course, the truth can defend itself. If a case is truly open and shut without any kind of anomalies, coincidences, or any kind of bungling or incompetency or corruption of any kind, then there people don't go after those kinds of cases. I mean, how many cases are there in history? Millions? Missing persons, murder. I mean, there's a reason why people ask questions on certain cases and not others. This is not rocket science. Now, sometimes those people can be crazy and indulge wild conspiracy theories. Sure, here in MindShock, we don't claim anything is true or untrue. I don't claim anything is true. The motto here, of course, is the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. Obviously, I would never claim a conspiracy theory is true or untrue unless there's valid, legitimate evidence. Reviews of the police's approach was opened by the Independent Office for Police Conduct after self-referral by the Lancashire Constabulary and by the College of Policing at the request of the Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner Andrew Snowden. It's an interesting name. Lancashire Constabulary also began an internal review into their handling of the case. Later in February, Specialist Group International were removed from the National Crime Agency's Expert Advisors database pending review of the case by the NCA. So, yeah, we're going to get into that as well. So perhaps the most mind-shocking aspect of this whole case is that a full police search with countless people over all this time, days, weeks, found no evidence of anything, and yet a psychic medium discovers the body. This is kind of weird. Now, before we get into the medium, let's take a look at this article from independent.co.uk. Diver who searched for Nicola Bulley removed from National Crime Agency expert list by Emily Atkinson. A diving specialist who searched for missing mother Nicola Bulley has been struck from the National Crime Agency's list of experts. Peter Falding led a team of experts and divers to assist Lancashire police in searching the river for the missing dog walker using specialist sonar equipment. Specialist Group International, SGI, led by Mr. Falding, was suspended this week while a review is carried out, law enforcement sources confirmed to the Times. During the protracted search for Bulley, Mr. Falding did not shy away in his criticism of how the investigation was handled, describing the probe as a mess and claiming details in the case don't add up. Most recently, he insisted he had been the fall guy in her disappearance. Mr. Falding, who has aided numerous police investigations, was asked by Bulley's family to help as a police search for the missing mother of two in the village of St. Michael's on Wire. His team was given 2.5 days to scan a 3-mile stretch of river between St. Michael's and Cartford Bridge using a sonar device, but the team came up short. Mr. Falding then declared to the press that the 45-year-old was not in the river and suggested her phone, discovered by a dog walker on the bench near where she disappeared, may have been a decoy. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't be the first time, but if Nicola was in that river, I would have found her. I guarantee you that. And she's not in that section of river, he said February 8th. Bulley's body was pulled from the river wire last Sunday, 0.9 miles downstream of St. Michael's on Wire. She was found by members of the public who alerted police to a suspected body. The NCA's Expert Advisors database, which is used to identify and source experts who can add value to law enforcement investigations, had previously listed Mr. Falding as a registered search expert. The list spans a broad range of expertise in more than 24 areas, from forensic artists to toxicology. A spokesperson for the NCA said the NCA does not employ, endorse, or accredit experts on our advisor database. The database is subject to continual review, and its purpose is to maintain a list of expertise UK law enforcement can draw upon when required. We proactively seek feedback from customers regarding experts' performance and contribution. The monitoring of performance equally applies to individuals and organizations who become involved in investigations without NCA engagement. A review into what happened in the case of Bulley is being carried out internally, and SGI could be put back on the list depending on its findings, reports the Times. This is kind of weird, though, because if this guy's legit, and he's been legit on every single investigation he's ever done, if that can be confirmed, why would they believe he's not legit here because he didn't find her? What if she wasn't there, though? And why is none of the media talking about the medium that found her? Now, if she really slipped and fell in accidentally, wouldn't there be evidence of that? And again, why wasn't it if the dog wasn't wet, or there was zero signs of the dog going into the river to help or investigate or anything? I mean, it's kind of weird. Another thing that's kind of weird is in almost every case of a missing person or possibly foul play is involved, it seems like the police really do lean towards suicidal very often. Because, I mean, and that's a problem, because what are the controls here? I mean, how many people that don't end up going missing or murdered, how many of them are possibly even more suicidal or in mental health crises than the people who do? And yet nobody knows about it because they don't actually go missing or get murdered or commit suicide. So, yeah, it's a really weird thing. It's like police are constantly looking for some kind of excuse or out. AM Penguin posted this on Out of the Loop subreddit, which is a pretty good write-up regarding why there's controversy. Firstly, the circumstances in which she went missing are quite unusual. There was approximately a 10 to 15 minute window between her last known whereabouts, where she logged into a work call, and the discovery of some of her belongings, including the phone on a bench. The fact that this was in the middle of the day and an area that is quite popular with dog walkers only added to the apparent strangeness of someone apparently disappearing with no trace, as did the fact that the dog was discovered soon after and was seemingly unperturbed. Second, her family and others were quite vocal from relatively early on about disagreeing with the police's hypotheses on how or why she went missing. It's hard to say for certain why this was the case, but it's likely to be partly because of the unusual circumstances, including those I described above, partly because they didn't want to believe that she might have committed suicide. Who would want to believe that about their family member? And partly because they were worried she might have been taken by someone, and if you believe that was a possibility, you would obviously be frustrated about the police's unwillingness to consider or investigate it. Whatever the reasons for these doubts, the police didn't do a very good job from the start when it came to communicating with the public. Whether or not they knew what they were doing, they managed to give the impression that they didn't, including the way they responded to the family's doubts. Both of these factors made the case intriguing to the public at large and armchair sleuths in particular, with the latter apparently being the source of many of the conspiracy theories. Much of the rest of the interest in the case aside from this, has come from how amateurs have conducted themselves. They have harassed the family and the local community both online and in person, and how the police dealt with this, which included further mismanagement of PR. The latest development with the release of personal information about Bulley is just another part of this mismanagement. It seems the police thought that releasing this information about her health and mental state might go some way to dampening some of the wild speculation about what has happened. Presumably, they thought that publicly revealing the specific reasons why they believed it was likely she had fallen into the river would convince everyone to see it their way, but A, it's debatable whether they achieved that at all, and B, the information they revealed that she was having problems with alcohol linked to going through menopause is incredibly personal. A lot of people think it's inappropriate for the police to publicly reveal this kind of information about someone, much less a missing person, for a bunch of reasons that I'm sure don't need to be spelled out. One reason this particularly touches a nerve at the moment is that policing in the UK is going through a crisis of confidence right now in respect of multiple high-profile incidents of misogyny, the worst being the rape and murder of Sarah Everard, which I went over that on MINDSHOCK as well. You can check that out. And many commentators are suggesting that had the missing person been a man, it's less likely this information would have been released. We'll likely find out more about the case in the coming days, especially if the body that has been discovered is Bulley's. The police have been challenged on multiple fronts, including by the government and regulators, to explain their decision to release health information, and given how high profile the case has been, it seems likely that there'll be some kind of public inquiry down the line. I think that covers the main points, but I'm sure there's more I missed, particularly in relation to the more unusual aspects of the case that brought it to public attention in the first place. Okay. So officially, again, dental records have been reported to indicate that it is her. Whether it is or isn't, again, depends on whether you believe there's some kind of conspiracy afoot. Let's look at this article from independent.co.uk. Man who says he found Nicola Bulley's body claims psychic gift led to discover it. Jason Rothwell says he decided to use whatever gift mediums have to help with the search as police confirm missing dog walker found, by Matt Mathers, February 21st, 2023. A man who says he discovered Nicola Bulley claims he used gifts as a medium to lead him to the missing mother's body. Police confirmed on Monday that a body found in the river near St. Michael on Wyre, Lancashire, was that of Miss Bulley. Jason Rothwell, who describes himself as a spiritual medium, wrote on social media that, yes, it is myself in the images in the media currently circulating. I would also like to say a huge thank you to Lancashire Police for their help, support, and open-mindedness with which they dealt with us following our call. Spiritualists or mediums are obviously not something the police come across every day, and I appreciate the respect given to us both. So him and whoever he was with were both mediums. It is also important to mention I was not asked by the police or Nicola's family to become involved in the case, but having seen the wild speculation and hurtful commentary that has been ongoing, I decided to use whatever gift it is we mediums possess to try and locate Nicola Bulley. Mr. Rothwell claims he had previously assisted in the recovery of Michael Brooks, a teenager whose body was recovered from the river in Penthwortham, Lancashire in February 2018. He said, quote, "It was myself and a friend who reported and assisted the police in the recovery of the body from the River Wear," end quote. You know, for the people who don't believe in any kind of psychics, and again, I actually did an entire podcast series on psychics that solve cases. Check those out. Now, again, that doesn't mean they have psychic powers, but there are psychics by whatever means, you could just say pure intelligence, solved all of these cases, just these countless cases solved by psychics or with psychic input. Again, let's not fall for false dichotomies. That doesn't mean they have psychic powers. I mean, maybe they do, but not necessarily. That just means they were involved in helping to solve these cases. But for people who don't believe in psychics at all, some people would say, oh, wait a second, he's done this before, he's discovered his body, he must be really a psychic. But the people who don't believe be like, wait a second, how do you know he's not a killer? Because if he killed these people and then he knew where their bodies were, then again, if these previous searches came up empty, unless, of course, see, how would he know they would come up empty, particularly, so this is 2023 now with all this advanced technology and sonar. I mean, it's just a weird thing, unless he took the body away and then put it back to play games. And that brings us into the Missing 411 issue, which if you haven't checked out the Missing 411 series on MINDSHOCK, check that out for the deepest deep dive into these mysterious cases. Sometimes bodies are found right next to the trail where they disappear, like right next to it, not even hidden in the bushes or the woods, literally right next to the road or trail. So that would lead some to believe that the body could not have been there, just pure logic and common sense. Even if they're the worst searchers in the world, if the body's right next to, within eyesight of the trail in broad daylight, dozens of yards from where the person was reported missing, you would think that after weeks and weeks of searching, even the most incompetent searchers would see the body. So that would lead one to believe the body was not there. So what does everybody make of this alleged medium who found not one but two bodies? Continuing on here, Miss Bulley, 45, was found on Monday, some 23 days after she first went missing January 27th. In a statement read out loud by Lancashire Police at a press conference on Monday evening, Miss Bulley's family hit out at some sections of the media and members of the public who said they must be held accountable for false accusations, misquotations, and vilifying the mother of two's friends and relatives. "It is shameful that they have acted in this way. Leave us alone now," the family said. "Do the press and other media channels and so-called professionals not know when to stop? These are our lives and our children's lives." The family said that they will never forget the mother of two who was the center of our world, adding, "She was the one who made our lives so special, and nothing will cast a shadow over that. Finally, Nikki, you are no longer a missing person. You have been found. We can let you rest now," the family said. Police in Lancashire came under heavy criticism for the way they handled the investigation and are now facing questions as to why it took more than 3 weeks to find her. Miss Bulley's body was found just a mile or just under a mile from where she was last seen walking her dog along the river after dropping her two daughters off at school January 27th. Now, so let's keep this in mind. Not only did the police utterly fail to find the body, but also independent searchers of the river with sonar failed to find the body. So basically everybody who tried failed to find the body until this medium at this point. So let's look at the map here. So the phone is at this particular location, and then the body is found in the river close to Rockcliffe Road, 11:35 a.m. Sunday, February 19th. So what was it? So up to 3 miles were searched with sonar. So is that 1.5 miles in each direction, approximately? Is that, they definitely go at least, they went over a mile each way. Or are they only going in the direction of the flow? But either way, if the body's found, I'm going to assume this is in the direction of the flow, because otherwise I'm sure that would be stated. It would be too suspicious otherwise. So the phone is pretty close to where she was last seen walking along the towpath near Allotment Lane around 9 a.m. January 27th. So there is a road. Well, there's a road here. Rockcliffe Road. Yeah, I mean, apparently there is CCTV footage, multiple locations in the general area. See, I don't really know what happened. Like, I don't have a theory. This is my check. I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Is it really possible they missed her in the river? I don't know. And what does everybody make of this medium? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Some people, again, just discussing the medium, just say, okay, he just got lucky because he was walking that path where she went missing every day. Well, so were all the other professional searchers and other amateur searchers. So police, firemen, search and rescue teams, they were also walking. It's not like this was 50 miles away or somewhere outside the scope of the search. Less than a mile. Less than a mile. I mean, this is why it's so weird. Because if it really was miles and miles away, like right outside the search area, that would make sense. Because it didn't have that many people searching that. And he doesn't have sonar. So what does that mean? That means the body was clearly visible and nobody else saw it? Or was it placed there later? So she was found supposedly not in the water. I don't know. From articles I'm finding, it said partially submerged. Independent.co.uk. Bulley, 45, was found just a mile from where she was last seen. It was on an unremarkable stretch of river just past a slight bend close to where a tree had fallen on its side with branches and undergrowth partially submerged. So the tree was partially submerged. The same stretch of water had been searched by both police and specialist companies since the mother of two's disappearance, with nothing being found. So specifically, both the police and this independent company with independent searchers who have assisted on many different investigations and are experts by every stretch of the word, but not anymore, or at least not listed anymore, but this is weird. So from the photo here, it looks like there's some kind of brush here that I'm assuming she was found in the brush here. Not obviously, if she was submerged in the river, how could he have saw her unless he was in the river looking? So if he's walking on the road and he just sees the body in the brush, is he specifically searching the brush? But regardless of whether he was or he was not, this exact area was searched. In this article, also on the Independent by Lizzie Dearden, serious questions for Nicola Bulley probe after dog walkers find body 23 days after disappearance. Search expert defends operation and claims it did not cover reeds as formal identification waited. But if you can see if they saw the body, I mean, this doesn't make any sense. But an excerpt here. We spent 4 hours searching for Nicola in that strip of river. We've done the best with our ability, but it was not our remit to search the reeds. That was the land search teams. Okay, so the river searchers didn't search the reeds, but supposedly the land search teams did, unless they didn't. I mean, this is only again, it's not like this is miles and miles and miles away where a thorough search wasn't done. And why would she even be in the reeds, though? Like, if she's that far up out of the river into the reeds, first of all, you would still notice that. If you're on a boat searching the river, you would notice that. But if she was higher in the reeds, how would she have gotten there? If she was dead in the river, how would she have magically went uphill? That's kind of weird. And the best view of the reeds would actually be from being on the river. So regardless of how thorough the land search team was, I mean, if the body's just right there, I mean, it's kind of weird. This is weird. And the exact vantage point from where this medium saw her, I mean, if it's visible from the trail that was walked a million times by many people doing the search, or not even doing the search, I mean, that's a popular dog walking area. Did they really cordon it off a mile away from the last known location where nobody was allowed to walk? But that many weeks later, I mean, I don't know. So here's an excellent post by Present Echidna on Reddit, on the Nicola Bulley Reddit. It's obvious she didn't go into the river at the place where her phone was found on the bench. It's too shallow there, and there were no physical signs of someone slipping into the river there. And yet everyone is saying that this is the distance her body traveled to from where she was found, which is untrue. The truth is no one knows where she went into the river. For instance, if deep enough, she could have went into the river a few feet from where she was found. I don't know. This case is strange. Mostly I find it difficult that a young mother would end her life while walking the dog. Why not leave the dog at home? Why even bother to take a conference Zoom call from her place of work? People who commit, well, not to mention texting and scheduling playdates at that second. People who commit suicide by way of water normally throw themselves off of bridges into deep rivers. It's practically unheard of for suicide victims to either walk or throw themselves from riverbanks into a country river. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, how many cases are there of that? Especially where there's like a ton, not a ton of people around, but a relatively popular place with dog walkers. Would they think, or kids, they might not want kids to discover their body unless they're that far gone, they don't care. But again, why actually even go to walk the dog or take the conference call and schedule playdates if you're that far gone? I mean, it's a little weird. Most of all, I know that it can have a great negative effect on some women's lives, but it is still difficult to believe that Nicola would end her life because of menopause, but much more so because she'd be leaving her 2 children behind. Yeah, I mean, another good point people are talking about, if you're trying to drown, it's difficult to do in shallow water because instinctually, even if you're trying to kill yourself, you could just stand up. So, I mean, I don't know, again, the mechanics of how many people commit suicide in shallow water, but if it was that easy to commit suicide in shallow water or even a bathtub, where you could just, what are you going to do, hold your breath in a bathtub? I mean, there's a reason people use other methods. Supposedly, this medium not only did discover another body, but he also helped with another case, the April Jones case. How many cases has this guy solved? There's also a quote here from him. I would add as a final note, I will not be giving any further information or commentary at this time regarding the work involved in finding this person, nor is it my place to engage in any discussion on how that body came to originally be in the water, end quote. So, originally be in the water, does that mean it wasn't in the water when he found it? Or does that mean it was partially in the water? I mean, I don't know how to dissect that statement. He also said he wasn't asked by police or the family to assist. LiverpoolEcho.co.uk also has an article here on Mark Bridger, arrested on suspicion of murder of missing April Jones. I don't know why it's not showing up on the current live version of this article, but on Google search, it says that Jason Dean Rothwell was pictured appearing to assist police. Curious. Very, very curious. So he's assisted on multiple cases? So apparently there were 3 specific searches. Not 1, not 2, but 3 specific searches in the exact area where she was found. That's weird. Another interesting curiosity. Nicola was found 23 days after going missing. The bench where her phone was is bench number 23. Wait a second, this can't be right. We're about to go into MINDSHOCK land. No way. Oh, what? Okay, I can understand why some people might think this is a psyop now because, again, psyop doesn't mean that these people aren't real or that they didn't die, just that there's something weird going on. Independent.co.uk, my brother went missing in the same place as Nicola Bulley exactly 45 years before. Both Miss Bulley and Roger Jones vanished on January 27th in eerie coincidence. A man whose brother went missing on the same stretch of river where Nicola Bulley disappeared exactly 45 years earlier has shared his sympathies with her family. Don Jones said, we know just what they must be going through because his brother Roger also vanished on January 27th close to the river wire near Preston in 1978. Roger Jones was 16 when he was thrown in the river after a motorbike accident, but was not found until 2 months later. His brother told the Daily Star he was obviously swept over the weir and into the tidal part of the river. It was just a case of waiting of what seemed inevitable. Mr. Jones said river conditions were pretty similar to when the 45-year-old mother disappeared and that Roger was found 7 miles away from St. Michael's on Wire, the town Miss Bulley was last seen. Okay, it's not the exact location, but what's weird to me, 45 years ago to the day, Miss Bulley was 45 years old. Now, See, this is the problem, because if it's only one number, you can say, oh, 45 years ago, 45 years old, not exactly the exact spot. Okay, all right, whatever. But she was found 23 days after going missing from bench number 23, the bench connection. It says 23 on it, 23 days, and then 45 and 45 and 45. I mean, it's so weird. What is going on? Wait. No way. No way. Michael Brooks, the same guy the medium found, was also found 23 days after going missing. Okay, I think I'm officially done with this. What? 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 This medium found not one, but two people exactly 23 days after they went missing. And the bench the phone is left on is bench number 23. Okay, let's write that off. This lady's 45 years old. 45 years ago, another guy went missing. The stack's getting too high, even for me. The stack is getting too high, even for me. So, for those who doubt the veracity of the Brooks case, GeniusCelebs.com has a write-up here, again, all sourced from major media, by Minoga Manandar, February 22nd, 2023. Michael Brooks, suicide or murder, missing man found dead in the River Ribble at Pentwortham. So apparently this 19-year-old was seen snorting a drug, and less than a mile from where he vanished 23 days after he was missing, two walkers discovered Michael's body and called the authorities. So the same walkers that happened to discover Bulley, also 23 days, also within a mile of where they went missing. I mean, yeah, this is all quite a bit. This is a bit much. I mean, Brooks disappeared January 14th, 2018. So not exactly the same dates, but the 23 days is interesting nonetheless. And this was also reported. Medium Jason Rothwell confirms locating and notifying police. Suspicious circumstances, reportedly thrown from a bridge. So you know what's kind of weird? If there is some kind of connection with these cases, it appears that there isn't, other than the psychic who found this guy 23 days after going missing, just like Bulley, and also within a mile of the last known location. It's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird. And there was also an extensive search. So witnesses claim that Michael Brooks was forced to jump off the old tram bridge by two men holding knives to pay a drug debt. Now, by all accounts, Bulley was not into any kind of drug debts or anything like this. Unless she was, people don't know about it. What's reported is alcohol, but that's... Yeah, apparently there wouldn't be a connection here, but it's just really, really weird. I mean, I really don't know what to make of the numerology here. It's a little too weird. It's not quite circumstantial or easy to write off like other cases. I mean, this is just really weird. You have three individuals overlapping numerologies and distances. I mean, this is just way too weird. A theory posted on the missing persons subreddit by McCool, with a lot of O's. My theory is that she has been sat on the bench on a call and then seen either her dog or another animal maybe fall or get into trouble in the water, and she had to put the phone down with the intention of getting in the water, and has been carried out with the current. It was an hour later that she was discovered missing, so that's quite a long time to be carried along in a waterway. To be very clear, I'm not drawing a comparison between a dog and a person, but a year ago my friend's dog disappeared in this same river. Further downstream to this, she turned around in a field and he was gone. She didn't even know if he was in the river at the time, as there was no trace of him in the water. He was just nowhere to be seen. We searched that day and every day for a number of weeks with kayaks, drones, etc. Eventually his body was found about a mile away from where he would have fallen in. So this is kind of weird. So the body just magically travels exactly 1 mile or just under in all of these cases, including this missing dog. That's a little weird. So regardless of where you fall in, you're going to be found a mile away. That's kind of weird. Well, of course, we don't exactly know where the exact location where anybody fell in. Although if the other account, I mean, yeah, this is all too weird. I mean, this is so weird. Yeah, this is weird stuff. I mean, there really is no evidence that she got into the water at that area right next to the phone, though. And the dog was found dry. So the dog, it was still chilly. Okay. Another poster here says they have a Cocker Spaniel. It takes 1 to 2 hours to be completely dry after being in the water. Also, remember it was a cold morning in a very small window of 20 minutes that police cannot work out. The dog never went into the water that day, and if he did, he would have still been soaked. An interesting post by Correct Driver. If she was taken from the seat area, the dog would follow. They would find him to where she was taken, not still at the seat. He seemed to be told to stay by someone he knew. Contradicting opinion by Grouchy Condition. No matter how well trained and obedient a dog is, they would never not follow their master if their master was taken away. I mean, yeah, it's hard because there's no evidence the dog went into the water. Because the dog would follow the master into the water, would it not? On the other hand, why would the dog not follow regardless of where she went? I mean, yeah, it's really weird. Other owners are chiming in that even after dogs shake off the water, they would still be damp to the touch several hours later. These are from UK dog owners, specifically from the general area. What's weird, other dog owners are chiming in that they have several dogs. Some of them drive faster than others, even of the same breed. It's a little weird. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Also, that dogs would still be mud. Even if they might have shaken off most of the water, there would still be some kind of mud residue. So it would be clear whether they went in or not. Other dog owners also say this. It depends on the dog. If I was in the water, my dog wouldn't dare go in. It would just bark at me from the bank. Okay, so was that specific dog a dog that would go in water? I guess that's the question. And people just keep repeating there's no sign that someone slipped and fell anywhere on any of the banks in the general area. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. How could she have slipped and fallen in without leaving any trace or clothing or anything at all anywhere? Queen of Hearts posted this. If you watch the videos on Sky News, the divers are on their knees in the water at the scene, and their head and shoulders are still above water. People in the area let their dogs play at this point as the bank is low, and at 9:30 a.m. the water level is 42 centimeters. This is probably the reason her parents don't think she simply fell in. There's even a small island in the middle of the river, 10 to 15 meters from this spot. You would hit this if the current was carrying you centrally. 6 hours later, when the tide goes out, it rises and the current is stronger. That's why there are warning signs up as the water level rises later in the day. From this point, the river goes 6 miles out toward the sea, and it gets much wider and deeper the further you go. Okay, so based on this information, it seems like, so if she had gone missing, let's say, later in the afternoon, there'd be a much greater chance, but at that particular time in the day, the water level is extremely low. And there's even an island right near there. So if you got carried, you would hit the island. Well, again, if you're trying to commit suicide, I guess you wouldn't. But if this was accidental slip and fall, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of evidence pointing in the direction of at that time of day, that couldn't have happened. So it was low tide, so 1.5 to 3 feet in depth at that time. Here's an interesting theory from Decker87. The only thing I can come up with is she was on AirPods on the conference call with phone on the bench while she was stood near the bank looking towards the river. Someone hit her with something so she entered the water unconscious. I really struggle to come up with anything else. I think it's a stretch to see her walking away with some guy at gun or knife point with no other evidence of this happening. If she'd been taken to a second location, that suggests a vehicle of some sort, of which there's been no mention. I also find it curious that police stated they didn't think she'd been attacked or abducted several times. I guess they were going by, she was by water, and so odds suggest an accident. But when you look at it a little closer, it seems unlikely that she'd fallen into the water and not be able to get out unless she hit her head on the way down. A follow-up post, I doubt very much that her dog wouldn't have followed and made it difficult for an abductor, and the abductor would surely have tied the dog up so it didn't follow them or hinder an abduction. An abductor would have probably thrown her phone in the water. This feels like a very unfortunate accident. I mean, nothing really makes sense here because the variables can't be accounted for. Also, police were still asking for dash cam footage. Huh. Now, is this a case of them just checking all the boxes, or did they not really believe what they said that she had fallen in? I mean, is it possible if she had a mental episode that she just wandered off, not that somebody killed her? If the dog was maybe distracted by something else, the dog wouldn't necessarily immediately follow if there was no danger or there were no other parties around. Especially if the dog is used to maybe playing a little bit of a distance away from her. Again, someone who had the details of how these dog walks happen. If the dog is used to playing, because some people, when they walk their dog, they let the dog play by itself a fair bit of distance away. They're not right next to each other. So if she just wandered off, possibly a mental health episode, and she left her phone. If she got sick of the meeting or something was said on the meeting, and she wandered off and the dog didn't realize there was something wrong because there was no other party abducting her or anything like that at that time. And if she wandered off far enough away and something happened elsewhere, and then the body was brought back later for whatever reason, I don't know. So, a post by user since deleted with some interesting curiosities. A few new things from today's Q&A with the superintendent which came up. She was on the conference call until 9:15 when a member of the public reported something to the police. Her family were called and she was reported missing afterwards. But this initial call was made before the dog was found. So what happened for the first person to make that phone call? The superintendent was asked if this is out of character for her. Her face changed as she clearly didn't want to answer the question, and diverted it to the fact that it was certainly unusual for the area. They are very keen to gather dash cam footage from around the bridge area. Have they been searching routes in and out of the village, or are they purely focusing on the river itself? Why can't they say if they think she has fallen in? I wonder if they're thinking there was some intentional action that was taken rather than an accident. Huh. Poster also said this: the person who saw her at 9:15 knew her then if they called the school. And if she was in the river at that point, then why not an immediate 999 shout? Something else was said or done to warrant concern. I know it'll obviously all come out eventually, but I'm curious to like what you say. What was said on the call, what the person saw, why her partner then called the police, why they haven't explicitly said they believe she had gone into the river. So this is a month ago. They are withholding all this important information in order to gather more evidence. So it is something a bit bigger than it seems at the moment. So the phone and the lead were found at 9:35 and the dog at 10:15. The alarm wasn't raised until the dog was found. And of course you would think, Few Philosophy posted this. I think the interview was very telling. The police know more than what they are letting on and are trying to gather evidence. The fact that they say there's no crime committed, she's just a missing person, means they have a theory or no evidence to suggest otherwise. Something must have happened that morning before the dog was found. Otherwise, why would the missing person's call have been made? The police did not address if this is the norm for her. Could she have a history of mental health problems? I can't help but think it's all very staged to look like she's fallen in. If she fell into the river, there would surely be evidence of this on the riverbank. She may have planned to disappear or take her own life. Next to the bench, there is a metal kissing gate. Could she have shut the dog behind this and then wandered off? Would explain why the dog left her side. The conference call could have been the perfect decoy to buy time. Anyone trying to get hold of her would have gotten an engaged tone, therefore thinking she's on a call, so she must be busy. Only time will tell, but I really hope she's found safe well and just needs a bit of headspace. It's always sad to read these posts from before a resolution. Everybody hoping that she would be found, etc. So what's weird here is, so if she did plan a disappearance and something goes wrong later, it does seem like a good setup between the conference call, leaving the phone, etc., and possibly even locking the dog or somehow getting the dog in a particular area, although it's unclear how it would be running free later unless someone else let it out for some reason. But yeah, that doesn't make sense either. Or it's someone else staging this some way to make it look like she fell in, even if she didn't at that time, and then however later the body ends up in the water, if that's really the body. Again, some people believe that the dental confirmation or whatever is not legitimate, and there is some kind of a conspiracy. Plenty Long Jumping posted this. According to The Sun, the search has ramped up at the area of her disappearance. The bench is finally closed off to the public and police divers are in force in the immediate vicinity. Given that she's been missing for a week, I don't think it's Nicola they're looking for, but evidence. Follow-up post, I agree, the police should have blocked off the area straight away to preserve the evidence or crime scene. The police couldn't have been 100% certain no crime was committed, so good practice would be to preserve the crime scene just in case. So it's weird, a week later, they seem to be making an attempt to preserve evidence at the scene. But for a whole week, they didn't. What does that tell you? That's kind of weird. Another post here, there's so many questionable parts to this investigation. The only CCTV camera that would see that location, owned by the caravan park, conveniently wasn't working. They never cordoned off the area or even the bench, which means tampering with or destroying any evidence there. And this could have changed now, but the last I read was a voluntary search team approached the abandoned house nearby and said for some reason the owner was there. Weird if it's abandoned unless work is getting done to it. And they asked him to go in and look for her, so he did and said she wasn't there. Sounds like someone who doesn't want to be caught would say. I'm no expert in this field, obviously, I can be completely wrong, but I just feel like this whole thing is a mess. There's even a man who has stated he has very good equipment in comparison to the sonar the police used, and if the police asked him, he'd get it up in the air via helicopter, but no one has. They're now trying to look into her Fitbit for data too. Again, I could be completely wrong, but I'm picking up parts here and there, but even the info that gets released every now and then seems all over the place. Another response here, the abandoned house should be forensically searched from top to bottom. I mean, that is curious. Huh. So apparently, yeah, there was a barn or abandoned house is right opposite the bench on the other side of the river, over a 10-foot garden wall. It's quite posh. Huh. But they didn't go in there? Lanks.live had the reference there to that. And if you look at the photo here, I mean, of course it could be deceptive, but this looks like such a calm little river at this point in time. Obviously, supposedly later in the day it gets moving, but yeah, this is weird. And the 910 witness is a witness who knows Bulley. And so this witness saw her walking in the upper field with her dog, Willow. So supposedly that's a confirmed sighting. So that was at 9:10. At 9:30, the team call ended, but she was still logged on or whatever. Nothing was done on the phone. 9:35, Miss Bulley's phone and dog Willow were found at the bench by the river. So 20 minutes time to vanish. Yeah, that's a pretty tight window. Also, apparently they cordoned off a car park and a footpath 9 miles downstream from where she went missing. So 9 miles. So the body turned up less than a mile. But they apparently had an intense search up to 9 miles. What is it with all these random cases where the CCTV just happens to not be working? Also, some people are inquiring about the contents of the email to the boss. if there was something in that email. Falding told GB News, according to this independent article, we dealt with a drowning a couple of years ago where a gentleman went into a river and Ripley, his dog, was screaming at the riverbank when we got there, Mr. Falding told GB News. When we arrived, it was howling and literally pointing exactly where he was. He stayed with his owner. No screams were heard in this case. Mr. Falding also flagged that it feels odd that there were no screams heard at the scene despite police having spoken to a number of witnesses. There were also no marks left at the scene which could have given clues about what happened. Scene was not closed off to the public. A scene of this nature would normally be sealed off to retain any clues that could unravel the disappearance, Mr. Falding said. However, the area remained open to the public, which may have resulted in the loss of key evidence, he claims. Because, yeah, it was a full week later or whatever when they finally sealed it off. The forensic expert said, people have been walking past the bench. There's no police tape up. This would normally be sealed off as a crime scene, so potentially crime scene investigators can go in and see if there are any microfibers, evidence, slip marks down the bank, etc. And I don't believe that has actually happened here. No body found in the river despite extensive search. The downstream and upstream river have been searched thoroughly by police divers on multiple occasions, but they still have not found anything, leaving the forensics team baffled. Mr. Falding told BBC Breakfast there are very professional divers and they didn't find anything, and that is odd about this. This is what I can't get my head around. It is very strange. Normally when we deal with drowning victims, they go to the bottom and they will stay there for a while, he said. The police divers have done a thorough search of that river twice and nothing was found. This is one of the most odd cases I've ever worked on. If anything is there, we will find it. A body will move after a time, but they searched the area and came up with nothing. That is what is weird here. We are baffled. When asked about whether Miss Bulley's body could be in a different part of the river, Mr. Falding said, unless someone's put her in a different part of the river somewhere or she's fallen in somewhere, it is a very short stretch. On a normal river, we can scan 10 miles a day for a body and locate it very quickly. He added that there is not enough of a current in the river wire where police believe Miss Bulley had fallen for her to have been moved downstream on the day she went missing. Lancashire police continue to appeal for witnesses and dash cam footage. So this was obviously before she was found. This article was released here. Yeah, very weird. So apparently they did have dogs, scent dogs, and they didn't track her scent anywhere. So, yeah, that's weird. Other people are saying if somebody she knew convinced her to leave, there wouldn't be signs of a struggle. True. But what about the dog? And what about... the search and her scent. I mean, this is weird. Another interesting post here from a user named Intrepid. I think the phone on the bench was a ploy. It's strange the family and friends don't believe she fell in the river, neither do I, yet the police do. If the family and friends were in on the disappearance, they would want the investigation to finish as a possible drowning, which is the way this seems to be heading. We need more information. If the family or friends know something, they need to make it public. The greatest danger of a secret can be keeping that secret. She's an estate agent. Where is her LinkedIn? It's pretty much mandatory, is it not, for networking? We know nothing about her past except she was from Essex. I read in The Sun today her partner wanted this sonar guy there, and is there a reason for that? Do they know each other? ? Was she being followed in the past? Did she have another phone? A lot of people have work phones and private phones. What does her digital footprint show? They should have mapped all her past online encounters by now. We don't know anything of her partner either, except he works in aerospace. What's his story? From day one, the police seem to be railroading the investigation into a drowning or missing person. I want to know what scope have the police been given to investigate from day one until now. It would also be curious, there's the car park nearby, the abandoned house. What else is going on in that area with or without involvement from Nicola Bulley? Is it possible she saw something she shouldn't have seen? Is it possible she was there meeting somebody and something went wrong at a certain point in time, not necessarily that day? Okay, so here's an interesting post on Nicola Bulley Found subreddit. Why didn't whoever had Nicola's phone at 10:30 a.m. pick it up? 2 mobile phone calls and a WhatsApp call from Paul. Was the mobile phone just left on the bench and no one heard it? When Paul arrives at the bench, someone handed him Willow and Nicola's phone. So this is Paul Ansel's Channel 5 interview with Dan Walker, February 10th, 2023. Then it got to 10:30, and that's when I thought, she's, quite late now, more late than usual. So I tried ringing her phone, and there was no answer. I tried ringing her on WhatsApp, and again, there was no answer. I tried the mobile again, and no answer, so I couldn't get it. I started to get a bit panicky, I think, so that's when I thought I'm going to have to go down there and see if she's all right. Okay, that's interesting. Not much discussion there on that. So 3 months before Nicola Bulley disappeared, the police force was criticized by watchdogs. Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, the HMIC, found Lancashire Constabulary required improvement in investigating crime. The watchdog also found the force wasn't carrying out investigations timely and thoroughly, and that victims weren't always updated on progress, according to The Sun. There's also 3 external inquiries over the hunt for the 45-year-old mum of 2 in St. Michael's on Wire. The search lasted 23 days before her body was found by dog walkers, a mile away from where she is thought to have fallen in. So what does everybody make of this particular force not being on good standing? I mean, this is kind of weird. Is there a connection there somehow? Also, people reference that there were literally hundreds of pedestrians and sleuths and searchers walking and filming along the exact bank from the bench to where she was found the entire time for weeks. So if a body takes 5 to 8 days to surface and float, the body would have been seen at some point making its way down to where it was ultimately found, especially the level of scrutiny this particular case was under. It's not like this was in some remote wilderness location where nobody was at. This place was highly traveled by pedestrians, boats, and helicopters even. So if the body was at the bottom and then came up at some point, I mean, this whole thing doesn't make any sense. Also, supposedly several houses have CCTV cameras in the general area. Not necessarily fixated on any particular spot, but the general view. So they probably could piece together a decent timeline of people coming and going if they have all those private CCTV cameras. Other posters are also speculating that supposedly there was no cash reward ever offered. Anybody have info on that? That's weird. I'm going to go over one more post here, which also, I cannot agree more with this particular post here. Something's off about this entire thing. So this is also on the Nicola Bulley Found subreddit, posted by Emma White Dodge. Why no footage from the school? Emma PTA governor. Okay, Nicola's last 4 sightings were apparently 1, witnessed by someone in upper field from afar, 2, witnessed by someone in lower field plus dog interaction, 3, witnessed by someone on the towpath, brief conversation, and 4, at the school chatting to other parents for 5 to 15 minutes. The most recent 3 sightings had no CCTV photos or video to back it up. The only visual representations we had of Nicola on the day, although many have said it was Emma, was from family-released doorbell footage via Emma, not even from Paul. This was her last known sighting on camera, but the school has CCTV. Lancashire police have not confirmed they have CCTV of Nicola at the school. Other inoperative CCTV in the area were called out So surely they would have said if it wasn't working. I struggle to think how someone could have been there for a quarter of an hour rather than a quick pick up and drop off and go, talking to at least 2 people and not be picked up on CCTV. Not only may this footage be crucial to determine her demeanor prior to the alleged suicide attempt, but could be valuable in the overall investigation. The police referred themselves to the IOPC for the earlier call-out incident, and it is likely they would do the same here. For any smart aleck out there that would respond with what about the children's privacy, it is basic tech to recognize faces and blur them. Street View does this, for instance. As they would be releasing a still, alternatively, they could simply blur everything in the photo but Nicola. I have seen plenty of released CCTV footage for crimes and missing persons cases, including shopping centers and busy high streets, where literally everything else is blurred out for privacy, and they usually circle the subject too. Does Lancashire Police have CCTV footage from the school? On social media, people have been commenting on whether EW runs the school, and perhaps that is why the footage wasn't released, but she appears to be the lowest rank of governor coordinating the PTA, although that would make her an authority where parents are concerned. EW is a parent governor and vice chair. Emma White is her friend who did a few different interviews and also apparently set up a GoFundMe. I don't know if people are speculating that she's maybe involved, but is Emma White involved in the PTA at the school? But either way, yeah, why is there no footage released from the school? That is kind of weird. So she's a parent governor in 2019. One of the new recruits taken on vice chair in 2019. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of weird. Also, it was a week before the doorbell stills were released. That's also kind of weird. Why didn't they release them right away? Don't they usually do that for missing persons cases? Huh. Some people are saying that the doorbell footage is actually Emma White and not Nicola Bulley. Huh. Anybody else find it kind of weird that there is no head-on shot of her? I mean, Emma White looks to have shorter hair, but I can't really tell. They do look kind of similar, which is also kind of weird. I mean, this is all kind of weird. Why would they not have a head-on... They only released 3 stills? Oh, here's another one. There was another one of her face. Oh, that's tough. Why is it so low quality? It is actually really hard to tell who this is. Why does her friend look so similar to her? I mean, this is actually quite weird because some people are actually alleging that wasn't Nicola in the doorbell camera footage, and that's why they didn't release any other footage, because it's not her. And she never even walked the dog. And that's... Now, does she normally engage her camera and microphone in that meeting that she had on her phone? Because if she normally does and she only didn't that day, is that because that wasn't Nicola Bulley and something else happened? Obviously, people are speculating that if something was going on between her partner, Paul, and Emma, then this was all some kind of a plot to make it look like she had an accident and fell in the river and something else had happened. Also, another curiosity here is that Emma White sent up a GoFundMe, £100,000, then dropped it to 50, then 5,000 before being deleted completely on February 7th. Emma has since apologized. Hitsy.com has this write-up. So, apparently the family were unaware of this GoFundMe. Emma stated, I have never been through anything like this before, trying my best at this deeply upsetting time. Sorry I got this wrong. So apparently it was to help with the family with the search, even though the family never knew about it, and the search didn't cost money. The police provided it for free. Yeah, very weird. Very weird indeed. The thing that's really weird, though, if Emma White pretended to be Nicola Bulley and staged this fall in the river, why would she be on the news interviews, Sky News interviews and other interviews, stating that there's no evidence that she fell into the river, and they don't believe that she fell into the river. I mean, or is this really a game of 3D chess where they're just saying that so people would say that? I mean, I don't know what to make of this. This is really weird. So, yeah, very, very perplexing case. I mean, it's just so difficult to make heads or tails of any of this because none of it really makes sense. Yeah, it's just tough. All the MindShock listeners out there, feel free to chime in with your theories on what is going on here. Numerology, coincidences, and otherwise. And what would be the purpose of all of this if it was some kind of conspiracy or cover-up? As always, if you find the MindShock podcast interesting and informative, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
You are listening to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. This is the Nicola Bulley podcast series. Episode 2, new information. Is there new information that has been suppressed? We'll be taking a look at a lot of astute MINDSHOCK listeners who have chimed in with some mind-shocking information on the Nicola Bulley case. One of the most mysterious so-called disappearances and so-called recoveries in recent memory. I mean, there are coincidence theorists out there who assume that this is a nothing-to-see-here situation and find absolutely nothing strange about this entire case. I mean, there are goofs out there. There are no shortage of goofs who think that this is an open and shut case and there was absolutely nothing strange about anything. But obviously this is MINDSHOCK where logic and reason rule the day. We don't hallucinate that coincidences, anomalies, and funny business and corruption and human fallibility don't exist in this world. That's not what we do here. We examine everything, attempting not to fall for any silly logical fallacies like appeal to incredulity, black and white logical fallacies, appeal to authority, any of this other nonsense that the coincidence theorist goofs spew. Objective, logical, and neutral is how we examine things here on MINDSHOCK, and we will continue to do so. If you want to help support the channel, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If they're still not coming through, you can just go to youtube.com/MINDSHOCK, like and comment on more videos. That's how the YouTube algorithm works. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. So, a very astute MINDSHOCK listener, Jeff's Wig, actually mentioned a Substack blog only known as Chris's Substack, posted by the one and only Chris. You can go to outsidethecave.substack.com, which has a lot of very interesting information, all sourced, on the Bulley case. Now, for whatever reason, again, a lot of goofs and coincidence theorists, they're going to ignore all of these references to official sources. Press conference sources, law enforcement sources, and even mainstream news sources. I mean, there are so many goofs that just love to pretend and hallucinate that none of this stuff exists just so they can believe in their Dunning-Kruger stupor. Their mental weakness cannot allow them to have anything deviate from the official narrative on the Idiot Box and the nice little wrapped up case, because they obviously can't utilize critical thinking in any way, not even on a children's level. So Chris's Substack here, Justice for Nicola Bulley Part 1, January 27th to February 18th by Chris. This was posted March 18th, 2023. Introduction. The full story of what took place between January 27th and February 19th is going to prove exceptionally difficult to get at, and it will be met with fierce resistance. But this is no reason not to try. Many people are afraid of uncomfortable truths, no doubt, and would rather live with comforting lies. Or sometimes it may be their livelihood depends on their not understanding the truth. Now would be a good time for me to interject with the one and only Upton Sinclair. And one of my favorite quotes from him, and probably one of my favorite quotes of all time, just because it is so apt in describing what goes on in this modern, corrupt world deficient in logic and reason. It is very difficult to get a man to understand something that his salary depends on him not understanding. Again, that's like coincidence theorist kryptonite. They run for the hills anytime that quote is mentioned. I mean, it's like they've never heard the saying, money makes the world go round. Or that, I mean, you know, there's criminals out there that'll kill somebody for $1. I mean, you can find them. And for these goofs to hallucinate that there wouldn't be conspiracies and cover-ups for a lot more than $1, I mean, it's just downright comical at this point. But unfortunately, what's not comical are the victims of crimes not getting true justice because of all these authority-worshipping cultists who deny all of these victims justice. I mean, that's just the lowest of the low. Continuing on here, for others, peeling back the layers to understand what lies behind the deception remains outside of their limited comprehension. To those of you who stand for truth and justice, you'll have observed on many occasions, if not constantly, how straightforward it can be for bad actors to manipulate thoughts and perceptions of the masses using a blend of misinfo and disinfo. Lancashire's Police and Crime Commissioner Andrew Snowden commissioned the College of Policing on February 22nd to undertake a full independent review into the handling of the missing from home investigation into Nicola Bulley. It's an interesting delineation there. Missing from home. Investigation review. This is like marking your own homework, not least by making the statement that the hypotheses of the police investigation on how Nicola went missing was sadly proven to be correct. I deal with facts, and giving the starting point for this review is patently false. Nothing is proven. I sense the start to a cover-up that will facilitate an open verdict to be reached at the inquest on June 26th. It's remarkably convenient, too, for Lancashire Constabulary to have indicated the Freedom of Information requests will not be released, quote, until a future point in time, end quote. Freedom of Information requests. I'm appealing to decent people with strong moral and ethical values to come together to demand and seek justice for Nicola Bulley. To assist with this aspiration, I'll relate the known facts surrounding Nicola's tragic and untimely death, joining the dots where it's helpful for understanding in order to expose the bogus investigation. Yes, you read that right. When many of you think you know about Nicola Bulley's disappearance and subsequent discovery, I can assure you you don't. It may come as a surprise to learn that there are very few facts at all, which is by design. And again, this is, for whatever reason, it's a huge hurdle for coincidence theorists. These Dunning-Kruger goofs, they hallucinate. They even know what a fact is, and to stick to the fact. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems, not just in this case, but in other cases where there's just Dunning-Kruger goofs running rampant, getting triggered by any and all podcasts, any and all write-ups, any and all social media posts that dispute the official narrative on the idiot box by incompetent and or corrupt so-called officials. Because what is truly a fact? A fact is something that can be verifiable. It's something verifiable, something that can be verified. It's not something you take on faith. That's just a really major stumbling block on the part of the coincidence theorists. The fewer the facts, the greater the ambiguity and unknowns. For more than 3 weeks, it was primarily this that enabled the spread of so much false and malicious information and fueled countless unfounded rumors, causing endless confusion, speculation, and false conjectures. Keep in mind that there were only ever 2 groups in the foreground that captured the public's attention to create the furor over Nicola's disappearance. 1, the Lancashire Constabulary. The following police conferences were held. A, January 30th, Superintendent Sally Riley. B, February 3rd, Sally Riley. C, February 15th, Assistant Chief Constable Peter Lawson and Detective Rebecca Smith. The press conferences were pivotal in framing the relentless mainstream media reporting, and therefore these police officers had a responsibility and must take accountability for their role as part of the 3-ring circus we witnessed during the 23 days of Nicola's disappearance. 2. The mainstream media, including, in alphabetical order, the BBC, the DMG Media, Daily Mail and Metro, Guardian Media Group, ITV PLC, JPI Media, Regional Publishing, News UK, The Times, The Sun, Talk TV, Reach PLC, Daily Mirror, Daily Express, and Daily Record, Sky News, and the Telegraph Media Group. It's good practice to remain wary of the media, to always be on your guard in assessing what they are drawing your attention to better see what they are distracting you from. And those are actually excellent guidelines, not just in true crime cases, but just, the normal drivel propaganda that's on 24/7. It shouldn't come as a surprise that the primary role of mainstream media, or the key sponsors directing them, is to control the narrative. So, as to open your mind, please humor me and ponder a hypothetical question. I'd like you to imagine and write down the name of a powerful organization that could theoretically influence the activities of both mainstream media, sales and marketing division, and the Lancashire Constabulary, the operational division. Please don't read on without having reached a theoretically plausible answer to this hypothetical question. It can't have escaped your notice how many stories circulating were directly or indirectly placing suspicion on both the family and friends of Nicola right from the start of the investigation. Much of this suspicion remains today, as I show later, and will never go away unless the real perpetrators are identified. To all those of you who fall into this camp suspecting Nicola's family and friends of foul play, you have successfully been manipulated. There have indeed been actors putting on a polished performance, but you need to invert your focus. They're not what you'd ever normally suspect, and while the media worked miracles to ensure you'd continue looking the wrong way, the situation descended into a farce as the days progressed with the steadfast refusal to redirect the investigation. Now, hold on a second. Let me interject here with a healthy dose of logic here. And I don't know what this guy's conclusions are. I'm reading this for the first time with all of the MINDSHOCK listeners and logically analyzing as we go along. But, again, statistically, when a female is met with foul play, it's usually at the hands of the boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, husband, ex-husband, or someone known to her. Those are just the statistics. So it's not necessarily manipulative of the media to focus on these people, because not necessarily in this specific case, but just a luck of the draw on a balance of probabilities, they are usually the responsible parties. One of them. Not all of them working together, but one of them. So it's not necessarily misdirection, obfuscation. It could be if they actually know what's going on. I don't know if this guy, see, if this is some kind of psyop and all the goofs get triggered, I know all the coincidence theorists get instantly triggered. They just start having meltdowns whenever psyop is mentioned, and that's very telling as well. What's their subconscious recognizing there? But psyop does not mean that bully or a victim did not exist. That does not mean they didn't die. That does not mean they don't need justice. A psyop is an umbrella of many different things, which could simply be manipulating very real people and very real events for specifically manufactured purposes in a particular fashion. That's something the Dunning-Kruger crowd, the coincidence theorists, they just have a hard time understanding the concept. They just instantly spam the black and white logical fallacy. Oh, you're saying this person's not real, didn't exist, and all this nonsense, because their mental capacity is just not there to understand these children's level concepts. So I'm not sure if focusing on family and friends is necessarily an intentional misdirection, but it could be. And again, there could also be some middle ground there. Who knows? But let's continue here. Before going any further, for absolute clarification, all family and friends of Nicola Bulley are owed a deep, heartfelt apology by anyone who disseminated any form of derogatory rumors. Even more so considering that they personally have had to endure for the anguished experience regarding Nicola's disappearance and subsequent confirmation of her tragic death. And again, this has nothing to do with this particular case, but the reason why some of these rumors started, and obviously no moral person is going to condone anyone claiming something as fact or claiming it as true. Asking theoretical questions is not a claim. It's not defamation, it's not slander when you're not actually claiming something is true. This is something, again, a lot of the goofs online can't, the mental capacity's not there to understand the basic definitions of slander and defamation. So the problem, the reason why some of these rumors exist is because in so many cases, friends and family members have killed for insurance policies, for jealousy, love triangles, all these things. Now again, this is MINDSHOCK. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I claim nothing. No positives claims here. We simply examine all possible theories for logical validity. The entire motto of the podcast here, of course, is the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. Time now to put aside all your preconceptions and examine with a critical eye what I outlined below. Above all, please remember Nicola Bulley was an innocent woman with 2 young daughters who have now sadly had to grow up without their mother. Nicola deserves justice, as do her family and friends who have been used and defamed as part of this theater of the grotesque. Again, a certain portion of online true crime aficionados and commentators, etc., have engaged in slander, defamation, all of these things by claiming things are true that are not proven true. But again, that's a completely different group than the majority of critical thinkers out there simply asking questions and examining theories without claiming they are true in any way. Events, January 27th to February 18th, disappearance investigation. St. Michael's on Wire is a small village with a population of less than 700. On January 27th, Friday morning, Nicola Bulley disappeared into thin air from a rural area of open fields with a bench close to a nearby caravan park with only her phone, dog, Willow, and the harness found. Ask yourself, ought it to have been rocket science to determine the bare bones of who, where, when, with such few variables involved? I mean, that is a good point. Fact 1. Lancashire police and the media provided a false timeline for the best part of a week into the investigation, from January 27th to February 1st. Let that sink in. And just a reminder here, I know people get confused easily, the Dunning-Kruger crowd, not the astute MINDSHOCK listeners. Obviously they don't. But a lot of goofs just spam comments. None of these are my words. I am reading Outside the Cave Substack right now, known as Chris's Substack. These are his words here. This is what he is claiming is a false timeline. Timeline 1. Reminder. Nicola was seen on the towpath walking eastward at 9:15 a.m. with the alarm raised at 10:15 a.m. by another walker finding her dog, Willow, running loose, together with her mobile phone and dog harness on the bench. 4 days into the investigation, January 30th, S.I. Sally Riley held a police press conference still adhering to this unfounded timeline. DSI Rebecca Smith subsequently tries to memory hole the entirety of the first 4 days at the press conference more than 2 weeks later, February 15th. So on the 15th, DSI Rebecca Smith stated, quote, "We've been really fortunate in that we've had a lot which has really been able to help us pin down both Nicola's movements and also the movements of key witnesses, which is why we were able to give a timeline of events quite quickly," end quote. Stop and think. This is a problem. Her statement is patently false. Please take a moment to now watch this short exchange between a journalist and S.I. Sally Riley on January 30th, a little while before the press conference started. And this is a Facebook link to an interview with a journalist and Sally Riley. Journalist asked, "How do you think she got to St. Michael's, because her home is probably 3 miles away?" Sally Riley responds, "I'm not aware of how she got from her home area to the village, but we believe she made it on foot with the dog to the towpath." So immediately, this prompts the following questions. 1, why does S.I. Sally Riley not have the first clue about Nicola's movements? 2, why is there a fictional eyewitness account at 9:15 a.m.? 3, why is there a false timeline 4 days into the investigation? 4, what might be a reason for starting again with the timeline on February 2nd? Everyone, other than S.I. Sally Riley by her own admission, had known for days that Nicola routinely drives her children from Inskip to the local school and then proceeds to walk with Willow from there. S.I. Sally Riley is following instructions in a script, the objective of which was to continue to steer opinion towards this being a missing persons case, but not a crime. By way of conclusion to the press conference, S.I. Sally Riley responds to a journalist's question of how suspicious the disappearance of Nicola is, quote, "We do believe that the likelihood is that Nicola has gone missing and that it is not a crime inquiry," end quote. You couldn't make it up, yet they did. However, had it been possible to make this initial timeline stick, the remainder of the investigation wouldn't necessarily have fallen apart, given the few variables. It simply outlined Nicola arriving at the lower field by the bench area from where the items were discovered shortly thereafter, with her mysteriously disappearing near to the river. Question: who was the eyewitness that had invented the 9:15 sighting? Police have glossed over this without so much as a peep. Could it be the same unknown persons who are overall responsible behind the events that have transpired, having introduced a phony witness? You see, originally it couldn't be known that Nicola had sent a work email and arranged a playdate by text before dialing into a work call. This alone undermines a claimed sighting at 9:15 a.m. starting her walk eastward along the river path. It just doesn't work. The new improved yet fictitious timeline to follow places Nicola in the fields where she may have indeed been by 8:15 a.m. in time to compose an email. It fits with a brisk walk from school to the kissing gate leading into the fields from where she could have paused near the bench to write and send her email at 8:53 a.m. Her text arranging a play date at 8:57 a.m. before logging on to her work's call at 9:01 a.m. I don't know Nicola's movements, but then again, neither do Lancashire police, as I'll demonstrate. The unintended introduction of a revised timeline is where it starts to unravel, with the upshot being the police had been played for suckers for nearly 5 days. Judging by SI Sally Riley's attention to detail, not a stretch to see how. Her less than stellar performance may have been a factor for appointment of DSI Rebecca Smith as senior investigating officer the following day, January 31st, possibly for damage limitation purposes. Sally Riley is now on a tighter leash and sticks faithfully to the script that her superior officer, the DSI, will have approved. Fact 2. From the get-go, DSI Rebecca Smith assumed and has always maintained to this day a main working hypothesis that Nicola must be in the river. Everyone has closed ranks, sings off the same hymn sheet, and emphasizes that there's no question of foul play. On February 15th, Rebecca Smith stated, quote, "Not a single piece of information or evidence to suggest that there is any third-party involvement," end quote. From the same press conference, also February 15th, quote, Rebecca Smith, "There is no evidence whatsoever or information, and there's been a vast amount reviewed, I can assure you, to suggest any third-party involvement or Nicola leaving that field," end quote. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, to coin a well-known expression, especially when you fail to take the necessary steps that might have gathered some evidence day one. Pertinent facts: no crime scene established, no police cordon, no reconstruction of a timeline, no timely searches of the proximity, not a single piece of evidence to suggest Nicola went into the river and her water-loving Willow was bone dry. If this isn't damning on its own, a highly respected outside forensic search expert, Peter Falding, confirmed after extensive searching that Nicola wasn't in the river. A consequence of which I have no doubt contributed to the punishment of SGI underwater search team being removed by National Crime Agency from the expert advisors database. And you know what's kind of weird? And I mentioned this in episode 1. Because if she really wasn't there at the time and they remove this guy, I mean, that's very telling, because what is the basis for removing him? I mean, it's not exactly rocket science. I mean, bodies have been placed in areas after the fact. I mean, you could argue, I mean, I don't know about the majority, but you could argue there's a large percentage of cases where that happens. How do we know that it didn't happen here? And from all appearances, it seems like it did, given the extent of the searches, the helicopters, how shallow the different areas of this river are. I went over that all in episode 1. Make sure you check that out if you have not. Short of DSI Rebecca Smith being a blithering idiot, which is exceptionally unlikely, the unwavering commitment to the main working hypothesis throughout of Nicola being in the river is risible. More so, as Nicola's movements have always remained unknown despite the masquerade of an illusion to conjure up definitive timelines. Well, I don't know. I mean, so this guy, Chris, he seems that it's exceptionally unlikely that DSI Rebecca Smith is a blithering idiot. I mean, I don't know. We cannot ignore Hanlon's razor. Never mistake for malice what can easily be explained by stupidity. Now, I am not claiming that that's true or applicable in this specific case. I'm stating we don't necessarily know for sure. I mean, have we seen any of her test scores? Has she been given any kind of critical thinking or logical processing tests? I don't know. Maybe she has. We don't have that information, so I'm not going to fall for any false dichotomy logical fallacies here either. Fact 3. The public's attention was directed by Lancashire police right from the start as to that being where Nicola Bulley would be found. Question why? For reasons unknown, there followed an unprecedented number of searches, resources of the river from day one, including drone, helicopter, police divers, sonar equipment, pole cameras, underwater drone, search dogs, and waders assisted by the Coast Guard, RNLI, and other experts. Leaving aside what never appeared to be remotely possible using an iota of basic common sense, this was one of the most comprehensive and ongoing continuous river searches. Faultless. I mean, I'm not sure if it was faultless, but it was clearly comprehensive. While the general public will buy into almost anything, well, yeah, that's kind of true, there wasn't sufficient widespread suspension of disbelief to support this ongoing river narrative. I mean, honestly, that was really my first response after reading about, if you haven't listened to episode 1, just reading about the searches, I mean, it just, I was surprised by that. I mean, it just seems like it's the least likely scenario based on available variables. I mean, if new variables are introduced, that's fine. But based on the known information, her going into the river, it seemed to have definitely been the most unlikely. Too many were casting a critical eye, and for that reason it might have been considered expedient to destroy Nicola's reputation and character by gratuitously publishing information of specific vulnerabilities and her having been graded as high risk. And that's the other thing, too. Not to interject again, I know I'm interjecting a lot here, but I just really want to cover all the bases, because in other cases, because it's kind of disgusting to do this kind of victim blaming or victim bashing. I mean, it's especially in like the Elisa Lam case, or even in the Maura Murray case, any of these other cases where just these low-level, I don't even want to call them humans, these subhumans bash victims and victim blame. Like, I don't know what what kind of mental level these goofs are operating on. Obviously not a high one. I mean, the mental deficiency across the board. There really is no Dungeons and Dragons spell that protects, even if they really are vulnerable, even if they really are suicidal. That's all the more reason, I would say, that increases their chances of being met with foul play, because, unfortunately, contrary to what coincidence theorists think, there are scumbags out there. There are criminals out there that will take advantage of people, particularly people in bad situations. So-called high risk or otherwise. Druggies, suicidal people. There are scum out there that might even prefer these types of victims. So again, I don't know why these victim bashers out there think that there is some kind of magic Dungeons and Dragons spell and just dismiss any kind of notion that predators would select these individuals as their victims. It's a weird thing. I mean, you see it in a lot of true crime cases. I can't think of a better ploy to support an unreasonable fixation with the river. I refuse to stoop to their level regarding this outrageous smear campaign, other than to say none of what you have been led to believe is backed by fact. The only fact is Nicola showed signs of being in good spirits and thinking clearly that morning. To substantiate this, we know that within the space of 20 minutes, Nicola dropped off her 2 children to school, was walking Willow, sent a work email, arranged a play date by text, and signed on to a work call on a timely basis at 9:01 a.m. Good multitasking. Do not fall for the propaganda intended to do whatever it takes to draw your attention away from there having been a heinous crime committed that morning. To quote a friend of the family who remained anonymous, understandably not wishing public attention, quote, "I feel angry for Nikki. She's a beautiful, kind, loving person, one of the best kind of friends you could wish for. This has painted her in an unfair light," end quote. Fact 4. Just like that, a brand new timeline is magicked into existence on Thursday, February 2nd, with the police press conference of February 3rd adding the necessary formality. Timeline 2. Nicola was seen at 8:43 a.m. on the towpath, 8:47 a.m. in Lower Field, and a last sighting at approximately 9:10 a.m. in the upper field before the discovery of Willow at 9:33 a.m. Oh, they had to throw the 33 in there, didn't they? Lancashire Police issued a website statement reflecting the new timeline, including this red flag. 9:10 approximate. A witness, someone who knows Nicola, saw her on the upper field walking her dog, Willow. Work is ongoing today to establish exactly what time this was. Wow, it takes this. This is kind of crazy. An intriguing choice of words that I'll return to when addressing eyewitnesses, but as a reminder, the original claimed sighting at 9:15 a.m. from Timeline 1 was fictional and most probably a phony, one that lasted for 6 days. I mean, this is all kind of insane. When you really take a step back and objectively look at it, I mean, this is insane. Are there still bootlicking goofs out there that are claiming the police actually did a good job here? From the police press conference, February 3rd, Sally Riley, quote, therefore, the time that we are particularly interested in is between 9:10, the last confirmed. So not only did they call it a sighting, confirmed sighting. It was specifically addressed as a confirmed sighting. Last confirmed sighting at 9:10 and 9:20 when Nicola's phone was found on the bench. Sorry, not found on the bench when Nicola's phone was on the bench. Believed to be on the bench when found at around 9:33. The witness made numerous inquiries to try and find the owner of the phone, not knowing whose phone it was and indeed whose dog it was. That led the witness to meet up with other people who did recognize the dog as Nicola's, and the school to which Nicola's children go was alerted at 10:50, as was her family. So all of this was known immediately, and so why would they stick to this false timeline and possibly imagined witnesses for the better part of a week? Do any of the coincidence theorists have an answer for this? Because I'm having trouble coming up with a good reason for that. Not the greatest delivery, but when it's difficult to repeat your lines if they differ to conflicting information you may be privy to, the media are now primed for another communication blitz tasked with a focus on two key messages. One, only a 10-minute window during which Nicola's movements were unaccounted for. Two, there's no question that she might have left the Riverside area. Sally Riley, February 3rd, stated, quote, Nicola was in the Riverside area and remained in the Riverside area, end quote. That's curious. How would they know that? In other words, Lancashire police, with no basis whatsoever, are prevaricating in so much as stating that Nicola had to definitively be at the bench near the river between 9:10 and 9:20, during which time she disappeared, ergo she fell or jumped and was swallowed up by the river. This is pure, unadulterated expletive. Before dissecting the new timeline in its entirety, a reference to show how SIO DSI Rebecca Smith recalls the same event that SI Sally Riley had conveyed matter-of-factly as a last sighting at 9:10 a.m., but this time at the police press conference nearly 2 weeks later. February 15th, Rebecca Smith, quote, at approximately 9:10, a witness that knows her had the last sighting. When I say an approximate time, it is that, but we are basing that on obviously the times that we can say the witness left the field. So I'm quite confident it is around that time. There's also a quote here from the same conference. The handset had been moved towards the bench area, end quote. It's interesting that references to her phone are careful to describe the phone's movements. The language used never implying to be in Nicola's possession. Because, again, how would they know whether it was in her possession or not? How would they know she didn't leave and someone else staged it there? Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, this is one of the worst investigatory jobs I've ever seen. I suggest the metadata from the phone analysis would aid in providing significant clues and inconsistencies with the new timeline. As to the Riverside area, an absence of CCTV to show Nicola ever entering the area doesn't preclude her, therefore, from leaving, especially with identified exits not covered. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I don't know why all the coincidence theorists are ignoring that. Sally Riley's statement is preposterous, and the DSI's account of the last confirmed sighting leaves much to be desired as to its authenticity. I mean, that's a good point, too. So they're saying that the minute was based on when this witness left the park. So it's not really a confirmed time, is it? Because they can't really nail that down. If that was even a legitimate sighting, of course, which we don't know whether it was or wasn't. Eyewitnesses, question mark. So 8:43, 8:47, and 9:10, question mark, and not 9:15, the original police and media claims. I want to highlight that if you followed the media reports, none of the high-profile potential witnesses you saw had any part in corroborating the new timeline. Mainstream media collectively acted as a well-oiled machine to ensure you remained engaged, but looking away from anyone that was pivotal as a material witness to the new timeline. All smoke and mirrors. Sales and marketing division at work. I'm going to provide a world exclusive that not a single mainstream media outlet thought newsworthy enough, surprise, surprise. None other than the individual than DSI Rebecca Smith purports to have sighted Nicola maybe approximately sometime around 9:10 a.m. with his fluffy white dog. However, we need to start with the lady in red walking her white dog, Snowflake. Christine Bowman. Sky News broadcast the important police appeal for this potential witness February 2nd. In an unlikely coincidence, the media frenzy around this lady then took place the subsequent day, the day of the police press conference, February 3rd. A good time to distract, as everything had just been reset, new timeline and all. Barely anyone notices, other than, of course, the critical thinkers on the internet discussing that. With the usual mainstream media suspects pushing their attention-grabbing stories of how she'd been identified from the police appeal, Sky News, true masters of deception, were broadcasting the new timeline and now portraying this very lady as the key first witness who saw Nicola in the lower field at 8:47 a.m., quoting police officer reports. This is the quote, saying the pair knew each other and their dogs interacted briefly, end quote. Fabulous, but wait. Unpicking the conflicting accounts, in a nutshell, this poor woman, in speaking to the Daily Mirror, said she was baffled by the appeal to track her down, as she'd originally spoken to police officers on the very first day, January 27th, confirming she had not seen Nicola. Oh, well, we do, however, learn her dog is called Snowflake. That's about it. Now, does anybody find that weird? So even the most devout coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultists, those that just worship at the altar of the idiot box and whatever's on the idiot box. So this woman originally did speak down to not just a police officer. It says here police officers, plural. So she had spoken to multiple officers the very first day, confirming she had not seen Nicola. And then all these other people, including the police at press conferences, are stating that there's a police appeal for her. A woman they had already spoken to and said she had not seen Nicola that morning. I mean, what do even the most devout coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultists make of this? I mean, are we just hearing crickets? Is there any counter-argument whatsoever? I mean, I haven't heard any. But continuing on here, and this was pointed out early on. I do remember reading about this. Okay, continuing on here. What you have is a stunning piece of media misdirection that muddied the waters and sowed confusion with unintentionally, misleading video account from Sky News, but fundamentally no story whatsoever. Sky News, the greatest coup with broadcasting the new timeline, February 3rd, is arguably making the first claimed witness at 8:43 a.m. simply vanished, supposedly an integral part of the new story. This suspicion is reinforced when Sky News doubled down 2 weeks later on February 17th, which I come to in detail further on, in an essentially lame attempt to support the new fiction by retracing Nicola's last known steps. Make a note, listen to Kay Burley and her sidekick Inzamam Rashid as they start across the bridge around the time of 8:43 a.m. Look, squirrel. For now, hey presto, with a mix of conflicting stories, amusing anecdotes, and sleight of hand, attention is diverted away from these first two eyewitnesses, and they disappear into the ether too. Question. Did anyone see Nicola after school drop-off and before 9 a.m.? Appears doubtful, and if anyone genuinely did, it's been obfuscated by the media. Therefore, only the police could substantiate it was with written eyewitness statements. That said, it's a tall order to differentiate between a genuine sighting or phony sighting, as we've seen. There are two feasible explanations that can coexist as to why it would be beneficial to conceal the veracity of there existing a single sighting, should you be so inclined. One, the greater the all-around uncertainty and ambiguity, the easier it is to bury outright fabrication as opposed to having too much clarity, which would lead to any whoppers sticking out like a sore thumb. And two, to add to the fire of wild conspiracy theories raging, such as, is Nicola Bulley a real person? This is not a joke. Some of you will be more aware than others as to the incredible spectrum of theories, rumors, and wild speculation that has been created by the fiasco of this investigation. Well, to be fair, though, I mean, obviously, I don't have a problem with people asking questions. Obviously, making claims is a completely different matter. But in certain missing persons cases, you have the media just flooded with childhood pictures, just countless friends, family members, classmates, coworkers, just on every single news channel talking about this person, whereas we didn't get any of that with Nicola Bulley. I mean, I still don't know if any kind of photos have been released of her growing up or in school or anything like that. I mean, a lot of people are questioning a lot of things about her past. Not that she didn't exist, but, I mean, I don't know. Did she work for the government? Like, what is the real reason for this just lack of information? Whenever there's a lack of information, so-called conspiracy theories or conspiracy questions will be asked. Next, the media frenzy deftly switches focus and continues unabated into February 4th with the next police appeal used to capture the public's short attention span. Lady in Yellow. CCTV images from an urgent police appeal for a mystery lady in yellow seen with a pushchair caught twice on CCTV. Subsequently reported as having come forward, the news of which was bundled up in a torrent of nothingness. But you know the drill by now. She has no relevant info whatsoever. Just another media distraction and non-story to keep you pointing away from what not to look at. Here we are, the last eyewitness to see Nicola at some time, approximately confidently around 9:10 a.m., question mark. But hold on a second, though. Let's say some of these witnesses maybe did see something, and there was a leak, and that leak got to the media or whatever. If most of the force is corrupt, I mean, how many police forces are 100% corrupt? Like, intentionally corrupt. I'm not talking about officers looking the other way without knowledge because they're too scared to actually do real investigation, because they're too scared to find out that maybe something is amiss. I'm talking about just sheer, complete complicity. I would argue, and I would guess, that every police force has at least one or two good apples. I mean, there's got to be some good apples somewhere. Maybe they'll get spoiled by the bunch eventually, but there's got to be some good officers somewhere. So if there are leaks, and some of these witnesses really did see something, whatever that something was, and obviously that couldn't actually be released to the public, so then the kibosh was put on that. So is some of this intentional obfuscation, or is some of it actual leaks that had to be covered up after the fact? Either way, I mean, it's obviously impossible to know. So continuing on here, white fluffy dog man. The entire 10-minute window falls on this man's shoulders. So who is he, and where did he come from? Well, quite time for an exclusive. Stepping in where mainstream media forgot or were directed not to report on maybe. Just a few tidbits of well-placed info were leaked in certain quarters to slip Keith Barlow surreptitiously into the narrative, all the while cloaked with other diversions designed to keep you occupied. The version of events starts with an urgent police appeal as reported January 31st for a dog walker who was seen in the area at the time to come forward. Quote, he is described as a man aged around 70, white, 6 feet tall, well-built, who was walking a small white fluffy dog on a lead. He spoke to a woman in the area before walking in the direction of Rowanwater, end quote. The woman is Penny Fletcher, the local caravan park owner, the individual who first found Willow. Wow. That's a tangled web. I still can't get over the fact, I mean, are there any other cases where police clearly speak to a witness, and then days or weeks later, there's the police appeal to speak to the witness they already spoke to, who already confirmed they didn't see anything, who they'd already have all their info and everything? I mean, it is kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. I find that kind of strange. I mean, I don't know. So, continuing here, the same evening, Keith Barlow is then interviewed by the police on any info he may have. So, what's kind of weird, though, wouldn't he have come forward day one? Like, how was... So, the local caravan park owner, would she have known who he was as well? I mean, how are all these people unknown? I mean, I don't know. Okay. Incidentally, this is the DSI's first full day as SIO, and we are still on fiction timeline number 1 at this point. Well, what a lucky break. 5 days into one of the most high-profile missing persons investigations in history, and yes, he not only knows Nicola, he saw her that morning, and they even allegedly had a brief exchange of words. Wait a second, so does he not have a television? Did he not go out in public a single time? So he didn't know about the search for Nicola Bulley? Wow. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this. Can anybody process this information? If you believe any of this, I have a bridge to sell you. I'm not calling him an outright liar for one compelling reason. Nowhere in the public domain is it reported that he has ever claimed any of this. This is because we are fortunate to learn exclusively from the Times publication the next day, February 1st, they had been in contact with his wife and she recounted it all on his behalf. So this is February 1st, Hillary Barlow, quote, "In the field, there were about 3 people, including my husband. He said there was nothing unusual about her and she seemed completely normal. I'd often see her and say hello. I always thought she looked very nicely dressed in her bobble hat and smart Wellington boots," end quote. More of Timeline 1 antics, question mark. The reason I can reveal the individuals as having identified the mystery woman in question, I made a surprise phone call to her, catching her unprepared. Let me stress, unlike mainstream media, I would never share someone's details publicly like this unless the end justifies the means. The call lasted 10 minutes. I'll bet most of the call was myself courteously explaining much of what I know, my motivation for calling, and finally, in extending an offer for her to make a choice. A clear unwillingness to engage. She listened throughout, reminding me of a rabbit caught in the headlights. I asked only for simple cooperation, a little basic info, should it be available, so as to be able to maintain her anonymity if possible, or else to be prepared to have unwanted attention by way of being exposed to a wider audience. It was abundantly clear she'd been advised to not disclose anything to anyone, and I empathize with the conundrum of being caught between a rock and a hard place. Other than confirm that it was the Times that contacted her, she stated at the end she would choose neither, and with that, her parting words to me in the absence of any other way to vent were, "Go expletive yourself," before ending the call. Let me remind everyone I'm seeking justice for Nicola Bulley and those who have been wronged by helping to uncover who is responsible for her murder. Anyone who chooses to withhold or obstruct directly relevant info to achieve that aim is fair game. I'll go further and suggest that any duplicity hindering the truth being discovered is complicit, simple as. In setting this aspect of the timeline up, it appears it must have been deemed necessary for a selected journalist to step in and help validate its authenticity, to put a bit more meat on the bones. Let me introduce you to Isla Traquair, a journalist that presented live on location at St. Michael's on Wire for ITV this morning, February 7th and February 9th, and then a week later, February 16th, appearing live at their London studios in a now deleted interview. Hurrah for the digital age. She communicates live on air that she'd spoken to the dog walker, aka Keith, about his interaction with Nicola. Isla Traquair, journalist, quote, "They had a little exchange as he was coming along the path about the dog in the lead, etc. He said she was fine." While mainstream journalists think nothing of lying through their teeth, you should know this already, they don't often put their foot in it to such an extent as Isla when she made this ill-advised response to the interview footage posted on Twitter, March 11, 2023. I'm rarely on here. This gentleman spoke to the police. He saw her as he was leaving along the path, and she was walking towards the fields, and she was seen by another witness after. Nothing suspicious. He wouldn't go on camera precisely because of this unhelpful speculation. You know, it's kind of weird, though, because when people do, I mean, it's almost like a catch-22, but when people do go on camera and clarify things, you know, it's kind of a different type of speculation after the fact, but it's definitely, you know, there's definitely less conspiracy theories about it when things are actually presented and backed up. An indication she had since forgotten her lines a month on, she tries to distance herself from the episode and even manages to introduce another imaginary eyewitness that has never existed in any fictional account in her reply. Moving on to further exemplary demonstration of media distraction away from what not to look at, the cat's out of the bag now, was the melodrama surrounding Ron the dog walker, who went public February 17th in tandem with the pantomime of Sky News retracing Nicola's last known steps. This latest round of media brainwashing couldn't have come at a more opportune time to divert everyone away from the fairy tale that was ACC Peter Lawson and DSI Rebecca Smith press conference February 15th, as well as away from Isla Trequer's creative imagination. Ron the dog walker, we're bombarded with stories of Ron, who went public February 17th. In summary, media report Ron is the individual who'd found Willow, the harness, and the phone. Exciting news, but wait a minute. We know it was a woman, not a man, who made the discovery. The misleading media stories are widely circulated nevertheless, shining a spotlight on his role as to refocus your attention. Lo and behold, little surprise, it's Sky News who assumed the broadcasting lead, filming live in the fields, during which a not-so-chance encounter with Ron confirms that it wasn't him who first found Willow. You don't say. None of this is by chance. Sky News have, from misinformation 2 weeks prior, having hoodwinked their viewers by spuriously placing Christine Bowman, the lady in red, as the eyewitness in the lower field at 8:47 a.m. This time, Sky News, deploying their two useful idiots, try to persuade everyone of the timeline by retracing Nicola's last known steps to support the made-up narrative. I suggest the Sky video banners on their filming are carefully designed subliminal messages to fool the viewers. For example, missing woman, 9:10 a.m., Nicola Bulley is seen again with her dog, appears as introduction to this fortuitous encounter and interview with Ron. Part of the ruse is to have people believe all three non-existent witness accounts, I'll bet the only one that must remain beyond reproach being this last sighting. It's helpful that Ron is a 70-year-old man himself, so the public can be easily misdirected. All in all, mission accomplished by Team Media, February 17th, the cumulative impact of info overload, effective and creative, creating considerable confusion, with most people now having lost any thread of what's going on 3 weeks in. It's therefore quite natural for mostly everyone to become solely reliant on what both the police and the media are spoon-feeding. In summary, Ron is essentially a non-story, although he does inadvertently make clear the police's timeline around the discovery is simply crap. The long and short of it, he arrived on the scene after Willow had already been found by Penny Fletcher, the local caravan park owner. He was never an eyewitness, and he'd provided a statement to the police back on January 27th, as had both Christine Bowman and Penny Fletcher, neither of whom are eyewitnesses. An additional observation, only that, is that Ron arrived in the fields on his daily routine dog walk at 9:10 a.m. when Sky News were filming. Thinking back to January 27th, there's no way to determine what time the discovery really unfolded, but it wasn't at 9:33 a.m. This remains clear by the implausibility of the claim alone. The reason as to why the public must be misled and is but another fudge in a fictitious new timeline I'll explain below. Penny Fletcher is the local caravan park owner, the individual who originally found Willow. This is fact. We're beguiled into accepting this has to be at a very precise 9:33 a.m. There's a good reason for there to be scant reference to her anywhere at all in mainstream media. With it evident, the sales and marketing arm of this operation have been directed to steer clear from her. Why? Well, Penny allegedly returns to her house on finding Willow to make a number of phone calls, including, among others, to Ron the dog walker's wife, her own sister, before at least her and Ron, if no one else, meet back at the bench area. Well, that's curious. At the press conference, the SIO summarizes this in the following way. February 15th, Rebecca Smith, quote, "Eventually, people return to the bench, recover the handset, and Willow, and we find that obviously they belong to Nicola," end quote. Now's an opportune moment to take a look at an earlier local regional reporting Lancaster Post account. I'm confident most parties wish to memory hole this for obvious reasons. The paper's editor is Nicola Adam. That's an interesting name. Interviewed by GB News, gives a seemingly straightforward account from Penny that couldn't be more at odds with what we've been told. She states, quote, "The lady who found the dog who's been talking, she says she knew she recognized the dog and she called the police immediately. Then found the phone as well, so the police were looped in extremely quickly," end quote. Oh, so we have Rebecca Smith with her revealing tells emphasizing a significant period of time that followed on from a suspiciously precise time of the initial discovery, 9:33 a.m., a time that doesn't hold up versus a conflicting account given much earlier just before the new fantasy timeline is complete for release. To those unfamiliar with Penny, she's portrayed by dubious alternative media sources to be a difficult person, and much suspicion is intentionally pointed at her, once again to fool those easily led. Without question, she would have known perfectly well who Willow, a dog with a dog tag, belongs to. She lives right there and will have seen Willow with either Nicola or Paul on numerous occasions. I've tried to contact Nicola Adam, a polite direct message via Twitter, to follow up, but to no avail. In addition to Penny being much maligned by unfounded rumors and theories circulating across the internet, can you believe that the police stayed away and didn't search her caravan park until February 13th? The same caravan park, the back of which the CCTV was not operating. That's a curious coincidence. Here's the thing. The police and media have probably needed to encourage suspicion and otherwise scant reference to her as a material witness. After all, what if we were to find out when she really first discovered Willow? What then? Putting it mildly, they'd be screwed. Penny Fletcher quite probably unwittingly scuppered the plans on what transpired on two fronts. First, by discovering Willow much earlier than might have been expected, and secondly, since it was her that triggered a police witness appeal that otherwise would never have happened, the outcome of which called for a final sighting of Nicola to have occurred in the fields at some approximate time, to quote the DSI. She may very well not be aware of it, but I suggest that if she were able to provide a genuine, open testimony of her movements that morning, it would expose a devastating conclusion. Nicola was never at the bench, and the scene was staged. That's another word that triggers goofs like no other. Staged. I mean, there's just so many Dunning-Kruger goofs and coincidence theorists. They just can't comprehend that sometimes criminals stage things to fool the gullible goofs like themselves. Fact 5. No credible, unambiguous evidence has been produced to support a single eyewitness account of Nicola's movements, and no evidence to support a window of time during which Nicola may have disappeared, let alone a 10-minute window. It remains supposition alone that she was in the Riverside area in the first place before the baseless claim she never left. Lancashire police double down, stick to their guns, and maintain their story at the police press conference February 15th. Quote, Rebecca Smith. A number of dog walkers in the area. We have been extremely fortunate from them from the start of this inquiry to have a number of witnesses, key witnesses who know Nicola. So there is no miscommunication about the identification of who was in that field. And also, we've viewed a substantial amount of CCTV. We've been really fortunate in that we've had a lot which has really been able to help us pin down both Nicola's movements and also the movements of key witnesses, which is why we were able to get a timeline of events quite quickly. Wow. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. This is gaslighting tour de force by the SIO of all the journalists present, and by extension, everyone who followed the bogus investigation. We've covered how certain irrelevant individuals were specifically selected to be splashed across the media for your delight, none of which had seen Nicola. Others with possibly very damaging info to the timeline overlooked if not concealed, and others still with the same low credibility as the phony eyewitness from Timeline 1. Reference here, February 15th, DSI Rebecca Smith, quote, at approximately 9:10, a witness that knows her had the last sighting. When I say an approximate time, it is that, but we are basing that on obviously the times that we can say the witness left the field, so I'm quite confident it is around that time, end quote. Yeah, I mean, that's a dead giveaway, because If they only know the time the witness left the field, how do they know anything? I mean, it's just kind of weird. CCTV evidence. How enlightening to learn that CCTV had been so successful in pinning down Nicola's movements during the investigation. Give me strength. At the earlier police press conference, there was at least the semblance to pass the red-face test. February 3rd, Sally Riley, quote, really rich data that's allowed us to have a very tight timeline, end quote. It's a fact that a few select CCTV images of individuals were published. However, there isn't a single image of Nicola on any CCTV camera anywhere between the school where she dropped her children off and her subsequent disappearance. Not one. It was widely reported that there are no less than 3 CCTV blind spots, any of which prevent recorded images of how Nicola exited the area of the fields. The CCTV camera at the back of the caravan park was not operating. And again, do we know they weren't operated, or were they just reported as not operating? 2, defunct CCTV camera at Rowanwater, with even the gate claimed to be open on the day of the disappearance. 3, no CCTV cameras anywhere along the river path back to Blackpool Lane. All pretense of this fallacy that Nicola didn't leave the riverside are at best disingenuous and at worst intentionally deceitful. I mean, that's a good point, because how would they know she didn't leave if all these cameras aren't working? Question. So where are the alleged CCTV images of Nicola pinning down her movements to DSI? I'm not in position to, nor trying to discover what took place that morning, as it's been made impossible to ascertain. If you're still suffering with cognitive dissonance, ask yourself how Lancashire police, ably supported by mainstream media, could have further enhanced obscuring what transpired that morning without it being anything other than entirely deliberate. I'm prepared to debate anyone at any time on this. Even if there were to exist an image of Nicola captured on CCTV, if the police are holding it back, this would make matters worse, or better depending on your standpoint, in setting the scene to allow the rumors to spread, suggesting that Nicola may not even exist in the first place. Say what? Some people are intuitively more astute than others and have a strong sense of when they are being manipulated by bad actors. To successfully pull the wool over their eyes in a psyop, it's paramount to steer them down the wrong path, to make them appear to others as crazy conspiracy theorists. Might this sound familiar? Part of this great deception, with the total absence of evidence of Nicola other than a few cropped, grainy images of her Ring camera driveway, has people understandably questioning her very existence. This speculation has been proactively encouraged by many sponsored third parties in the background through social media campaigns using misinfo to devastating effect, so as to intentionally cast also suspicion on family members and friends of Nicola. Even the BBC, one of the most influential disinfo channels for governments and major corporations alike, played a bit role in this particular subterfuge. Did Emma White, a good friend of Nicola, insist on her name being stamped in capital letters on those grainy images of Nicola leaving home? Doubtful. I can assure you there are still people to this day debating whether those images show Emma and not Nicola. All very convenient for these media ghouls. BBC, February 6th. I'll move on from here, but to all those that were duped and find themselves constantly going in circles, I did take the time to source early on reliable evidence to determine as fact that Nicola was a very real person and evidently a devoted, loving mother to her 2 young daughters who will be missed beyond words, especially by her children, but also to all others close to her. If anyone thinks this is ludicrous, you'd best acquaint yourself with AI and deepfakes sooner rather than later. Wait, what? Background misinfo. Additional evidence to substantiate my statement above. Would it surprise you to learn that as recently as March 13th, established YouTubers continue unrelentlessly to peddle misinfo to maintain ludicrous conspiracies of foul play by family and friends. This campaign is ongoing and will continue until the perpetrators can put a lid on this case and move on to the next one. I'll give reluctantly but one example. Note, these YouTubers have tens of thousands of subscribers to their channels. On reviewing as much as you can bear, have a thought as to who you suspect funds agents such as these, those responsible for deceiving you. Join the dots, or are they just stupid, certainly callous? I apologize to both Paul Ansel and Emma White for having to post garbage, and they just posted a couple videos. Coordinated misinfo campaign by disingenuous YouTubers that are actively deceiving and manipulating their audience, in this case by using doctored original footage of Nicola leaving home that morning. It's done in such a way as to misdirect gullible audiences. I can unpick these in a subsequent post or commentary if need be, if you're unable to see the techniques being used. So he's alleging that they're faking footage to make it appear more fake. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And people are doing all sorts of weird stuff out there. Fact 6. What facts from the investigation do exist in the public domain? It comes down to this. 8:40 a.m., Nicola drops her children at school. 8:53. Well, so there is a video of that, but has that been released? And this guy did mention AI and all these deepfakes. If footage was released, could it be faked? And by whom and for what purpose? Or does this Chris guy think that only YouTubers would use AI and deepfakes and not the media and the police, which he claims to not trust in the first place? I don't know. This is all kind of weird. 8:53 a.m., Nicola sends a work email. And again, do we know if that's her that sent the email? Her phone sent the email, right? 8:57 a.m., Nicola sends a friend a text to organize a playdate. Again, how do we know that that was her that did that? 9:01 a.m., Nicola signs into a Teams group work call. Again, how do we know that? 9:20 a.m., mobile phone handset has moved toward the bench. Penny Fletcher, local caravan park owner, discovers Willow near the bench area. Time unknown. That's it. Can you see it yet? Okay, here's another good point, too, because people were saying the dog would have followed Nicola. So what if someone other than Nicola dropped the dog off there? What would the dog do? I mean, if Nicola was never there in the first place, like, what do you expect that dog to do? I don't know if we specifically discussed that in the first episode. Conclusion. In wrapping up part 1 of the terrible events, I asked you to return to the hypothetical question posed and control the narrative. Are you better equipped yet to find an answer as to who may be pulling the strings, capable of influencing background misinfo support actors, in addition to the foreground actors, Lancashire police and mainstream media, an unaccountable organization with considerable reach and influence beyond the grasp of even government? Arthur Conan Doyle. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I mean, my main issue with that quote is that how do you know you've truly eliminated all of the impossible? And how do you know whatever remains is truly all that remains? I mean, those are the challenges there. To avoid misunderstanding, I emphasize the vast majority of police personnel are committed, hardworking individuals providing a valuable service to their communities. However, I ought not need to explain how in all enterprises the work is highly compartmentalized, officers following orders, diligently performing their tasks, oblivious to the political landscape within they've been operating. It is plainly unacceptable that the independent review on the abduction and murder of Nicola Bulley has been assigned to the College of Policing, the professional body for the police service, well within the influential reach of the same powerful organization. All attention should focus on DSI Rebecca Smith, the senior investigating officer. With all the evidence to hand and within her control, she must be made accountable to speak to the full extent of the truth as far as she knows it. In part 2, the day of discovery of poor Nicola's body on February 19th, 23 days after her disappearance, I'll unravel the hideous circus act that took place, which is even more disturbing given the circumstances. I'll not deal with the esoteric nature of the synchronicity, only to say the vanishing small minority of people that are well versed with signs hidden in plain sight, that this aspect is too big a step into the unknown for most, as well as beyond the scope of what the goal is to seek justice for Nicola Bulley. Until next time, please do share widely. It's a given that no mainstream media will touch this for painfully obvious reasons. However, I remain optimistic there's still sufficient journalistic integrity among alternative media, and that decent, ordinary people are also prepared to help raise the profile to expose the sordid truth. So we're going to get to part 2 in the next episode, but I did want to go over MindShock listener comments. Ding Dong posted this in the live chat of the Nicola Bulley podcast on MindShock. Blatant false flag. They were trying to push 15-minute cities at the time, amongst other things. Symbolism is everywhere. Missing 23 days. Benchmark 23. 2 threes, 33. A psychic who found her was 33, etc. Sheila posted, if this case is allowed to go and not investigated, it will be a grave miscarriage of justice. This was no accident. Tom posted, mate, the police majorly effed up on this one. I'm from the UK and it reeks of a cover-up. Wish My Name Was Rebella said that at the time the police were asking about the dash cam footage, they completely failed to mention the man in black brought up at the inquest. Interesting. 14 researcher posted, what evidence did the coroner have that was an accident? 0. So in light of that, what was his verdict? Accidental. Andy Simo posted, there is no evidence of her falling in the river. Definitely something fishy here. Idiot Simulator posted, Nicola was a victim of domestic violence. There are many photos of her bruises on Huda. Huda? H-U-D-A? I don't know what that is. Her partner gave an interview which was one of the strangest things I have ever witnessed. He didn't ask Nicola to come home, nor ask her potential abductors to release her. His face was still showing the bruising and scratches 2 weeks after she went missing, which was when he gave this interview. He was all, and who knows, does anybody know what he looked like? Were any photos taken of him the day after or the day she went missing? He was also the one who told the police that she had menopause problems and alcohol issues. She was in regular contact with her doctor regarding her menopause, and she had no alcohol in her system or problems with her liver. I believe Paul was gaslighting her and us as why let your alcoholic partner drive to your girls' school, etc. Emma, who gave 16 or 17 interviews and said she'd seen Nicola that morning, was not included at all in the inquest. The psychic didn't find another body. I think it was his grandmother. I believe Nicola was abducted, then put into the river just before she was discovered. No way would she have gone into the water, which was very shallow, without Willow going in after her. Also, her body was covered in bruises, and she had blood on her face when she was found. Another post here. Paul was rang by the school that Willow was found near the river. It came out in the findings that he never rang Nicola, even though he said he did at first, nor did he go to the river as the police told him to stay home. There was no mention of the 2 men fishing sighted nearby, nor did the man in black sightings by 2 people come forward. 2 screams were also heard by 2 witnesses, which, along with the man in black and the fisherman, were not mentioned by the police at the beginning of the investigation. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of information to shove under the rug. Like, what's going on with that info? If that's all legitimate. Huh. The other thing, too, like, if your wife is missing, the police might tell you not to go where she could be, but would anybody actually do that? I mean, I don't know. Courtney Squill posted this. Very interesting comment here. The psychic found an 18-year-old who owed a drug debt 12 miles away. The psychic was also arrested in 2016, sentenced in 2018, with a man called Ansel, believed to be a cousin of Paul, in a Class A drug bust in Blackpool. The same senior investigation officer, Rebecca Smith. Engineer linked to Paul and director of his company was found dead in a river. Nicola had been inquiring after him and found interesting info the night before she vanished. So there's an awful lot of people linked to drug gangs and falling into rivers, allegedly accidentally. If it looks like a cover-up and smells like a cover-up, it is a cover-up. Wow. Okay, that's actually kind of crazy if that's true. So there's multiple layers here. So if there are these witnesses, the fisherman, the screams, the guy in black, and now if these connections are real, I mean, even the most devout coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultists, how can you write this off if this is legitimate? So this psychic has prior arrests, and he knows the cousin of Paul what? If that's true, believed to be a cousin. So that's unknown, but possibly same last name. Same investigation officer. And apparently the director of Paul's company was found dead in a river, and Nicola had supposedly been asking about, well, what? This is really insane if all of this is true. Okay, EU4A Chat 123 posted, the camera was turned off at the school. That never happens. It is a requirement to be on 24/7, which leads me to believe these cameras were tampered with. See, that would be, if that's true, I mean, this is definitely some kind of operation. If that's true. I mean, that's pretty insane. Huh. Felicity posted that whole thing that was said at the early police press conference about the dog being found after a call to police had been made has been wiped out of existence. At the inquest, under oath, the woman said she found the phone and dog at the same time, but, quote, not before 9:40, end quote. The only call to police is now partner Paul at around 11. I think the Q&A broadcast might have been edited to remove this mention of an alleged call to the police as I recall it live. I asked a journalist who also reported in a video that the person who found the phone told her she called the police straight away, but she did not reply. Most articles from the first few days Nicola was missing have been removed from the internet. So those of us who remember the early reports can be dismissed as misremembering maddening. Well, you can go to Wayback Machine and for archives of all those articles if you have the URL address. CU4A Chat 123 posted, I had posted on a Nicola Bulley site about Keith Barlow seeing Nicola with two men in dark clothing and another female walking in the direction of Rowan Water. That video was made private minutes after posting it. Guaranteed it was the police that directed that YouTuber to make it private or have it deleted. Huh. That's kind of weird. I don't know if I read this article in episode 1, but there's an article here, the U.S. Sun, hunting for clues. Cops seal off a car park after reports of suspicious vehicle 7 miles downriver from where a missing Nicola Bulley vanished. So they actually did seal off a car park, and there was a forensic investigation done. Huh. CU4A Chat 123 also posted, it would have been impossible for Peter Falding's sonar equipment to not to have found her body along with the cadaver dogs. The dogs would have sniffed Nikki had she been in those reeds. Nikki was placed in those reeds after the fact. Mike Rook posted, this particular type of Fitbit is and was capable of running a few hours after water immersion, yet recorded a heartbeat for several hours after. If it was recording a heartbeat, the GPS facility would record where she was. So why, 1, wasn't she found within 2 or 3 hours? 2, was she in fact out of the water those few hours, and therefore the victim of a kidnap then murder after the body was stored? I'd like a public inquiry and time spent by another police force, so LP are not marking their own homework, into looking into these issues. Now, here's a very astute researcher who posted, this is Ray Little, posted, I have asked whether a diatom test was conducted on Nicola Bulley and whether a sample of water was taken from the river wire and the diatoms tested. LP have answered saying that they do not have this information. I will keep on trying. Wow. And for those that don't know, a diatom test, diatoms are microscopic unicellular colonial or filamentous algae found in marine and freshwater ecosystems as well as in brackish water soil or even on most moist surfaces. And it's kind of considered the gold standard in diagnoses of death due to drowning. From journals.sbmu.ac.ir, the role of diatoms in diagnoses of death due to drowning case studies. Background: the most frequent use of diatoms in forensic science is the diagnosis of death due to drowning. The basic principle of the diatom test in drowning is based on the inference that diatoms are present in medium where drowning took place, and the inhaled water enters the alveolar spaces of lungs and penetrates from the alveoli into the blood circulation. Thus, microscopic unicellular algae called diatoms get transported to different organs of body. The diatoms found inside the body of drowned victim may serve as corroborative or even conclusive evidence to support the diagnosis of death. It can be ascertained whether the drowning is ante-mortem or post-mortem. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there are false positives and there's issues as with everything, but it's very, very useful, of course, and theoretically you'd be able to match even the body of water where someone was drowned if the test was rigorous enough. Night Owl posted, yes, I was surprised at just how undetailed that crucial bit of info was, given at the formal inquest. I can't remember the words used, but I am sure it was extremely scanty detail about the amount of water or specified type of water that was found in her lungs. 14 researcher posted, don't forget the psychic turned the body over just to check it was Nikki, or so he says. I mean, it's not a good enough to find a body in the river. You'd best check who it is before informing the cops, right? They're bound to ask. Yeah, that's weird. Where did, so he actually touched the body? That's insane, if that's true. Yeah, what is up with the Popo in this case? It's kind of weird. 40 researcher said on his own Twitter feed, believe it or not, he wanted to check it was her, and Nikki was allegedly moving against the tide, so he reckons. Huh, that's weird. Mercy and Dream posted, having watched the video of the recovery of the body and later findings of the vehicles used during the operation, I have even more questions. The manner in which the body was handled was disgraceful, as was the behavior of the recovery team. I could not get the words of Peter Falding from my mind when he spoke of a dead sheep in a river. This case throws up ever more suspicion with every passing day. From beginning to end, it has been nothing but lies. 14 researcher also stated, just for the record, with regards to dog walkers finding Nikki's body, in order to qualify as a dog walker, they'd have to have a dog with them. So it wasn't dog walkers then, because there was no dog. Where's the dog? More accurate to say a psychic and his pal found Nikki. I'm fairly sure that's what he claims to be, allegedly. He turned up because his psychic pals had told him to go and where to look, right? Question mark. Who needs professional search teams? The world's finest sonar technology, drones, cadaver dogs, helicopters, etc. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? Get a psychic in. Interesting point. Okay, user IH60T3HQTE stated Andrew Snowden actually said on camera that LP correctly predicted the day Nicola Bulley would be found. How? Julian Anderson responded, the only way he could have predicted it is if it was staged, which would make more sense at the so-called police laughing before dragging whatever it was up in the bank. What is going on? Stefan posted, red van parked in the grounds of an old mansion opposite where Nicola went missing, deemed not suspicious. Man who rented an outbuilding at the old house to store wood said it was parked in front of the building. It had no reason or right to be there. It was private property. Go figure, deemed not suspicious was never traced. CU4A Chat 123 responded, the same old mansion that the police let the owner search the house while the police searched the outside. This was a huge cover-up right up to the top, the government. That's kind of weird, though. So the Popo shows up. And the Popo says, yeah, search your own house. Make sure she's not in there. We'll search the outside. Does anybody actually think that's legit? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Okay, so we're really getting into MINDSHOCK land now. CU4A Chat 123 also posted, Paul used to work for BAE. Both witnesses' husbands work for BAE. Derek Clayton worked for BAE years ago. Thinking Nikki was killed over info she discovered to silence her, could it be racketeering, fraud, embezzlement, or money laundering? So for those that don't know, BAE Systems, according to their own website, we provide some of the world's most advanced technology-led defense, aerospace, and security solutions. Interesting. Wow. Wow. This is kind of crazy. Julian Anderson responded, Nikki worked as a mortgage advisor. Could be something to do with properties or land. How this was obtained, leased out, the reason it was leased out, people it was leased to, corruption, trafficking, organs. So, but regarding BAE, how coincidental both witnesses' husband work for BAE. And Paul used to work for BAE. What's going on at BAE? And is it Paul's current company that the company director died under mysterious circumstances or something like that? in a river, drowned in a river. Also, Jason Rothwell, the so-called psychic, he lives 50 miles away, supposedly. So this is a curiosity. Andy Sima also posted, Jason Rothwell said he clearly saw Nicola Bulley floating down the river and then it caught in the trees or the reeds. BS, in my opinion, and he just happened to be in the area, ? He lives 50 miles away. Huh. That's a curiosity. He just happened to be there. And it's supposedly people are saying he lives 50 or even 60 miles away. So what does everybody make of all this? I mean, this is truly a perplexing case. Obviously, there's a lot more to go over. There's just so many loose ends and so-called coincidences, anomalies, etc. Obviously, all the astute MindShock listeners can chime in. Leave their comments, thoughts, theories, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind in the comment section. And as always, if you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly becoming extinct, as evident in this case and many other cases and topics, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.